Abhimanyu. Good afternoon, Abhishek. Good afternoon, Ruchika. Okay, let's see this. Uh, Yesterday we were talking on public sector, so we'll design it. The question that you can get sometimes is to critically analyze the requirement of reforms in public sector enterprises. Critically analyze the requirement of reforms in public sector enterprises. If the question is this, if the question is to critically analyze the requirement of reform, this is the key word, requirement of reform, then the focus should be on challenges in public sector enterprises. All right, then the question is not asking you to only describe the reforms of public sector enterprises. All right, so be careful about how to understand what they are asking you. So if they say critically analyze the requirement of reform, then they are not asking you about the challenges, the reforms. They're actually asking you about the requirement of reforms and then the challenges in PSEs. And then, of course, it's not that you will not write about the reform. You will write about the possibilities of reform, but this is about analyzing the challenges in PSEs. So when it comes to challenges, we did it in India before 91 also. I'm just recalling it for you. I'm also recalling that you recall that you can have public sector enterprise and undertaking. Enterprise are those which are established under Companies Act. Undertaking are those which are established by a special act of parliament. एक बार अपने पब्लिक सेक्टर के डिस्कशन को रिवाइज कर लेना जो पहले कर चुका हूँ वहाँ ये बातें कर चुके हैं हम लोग. So I'm not repeating it again. Now when we talk about the challenges in public sector, challenges are like this. The first is poor pricing strategy. I hope you would recall, यहाँ पर मैंने आपको 4 types of pricing सिखाया था. All right, poor pricing strategy, that there should be a rate of return pricing, commercial pricing, and there is a pricing for public goods, and there is pricing for merit goods, and pricing for public utilities. You know, so we can give free commodity, free goods services of public to the public. We can make sure that there is subsidization. We can make sure that there is recovery of cost, and we can make sure that there is commercial pricing. So जब भी pricing strategy की बात होगी, pricing strategy हो सकता है free provision. ये free provision होता है for pure public goods like law and order, defense, policing. Pricing strategy can include subsidies. These subsidies can be for merit goods like education, healthcare, etc. Then there can be recovery of cost, which is called user's cost approach, and that is related to things like public utilities, electricity, railways, and so on. And then there can be commercial pricing. Commercial pricing is the rate of return approach, that there should be some minimum rate of return that you expect. So that is commercial pricing, that you have a rate of return approach. There is some minimum rate of return that you would expect. So this is about poor pricing strategy. That is one thing that sometimes we struggle with and we need to take care of. Then there is, so what we have done in public sector is more or less, this has been the policy, that either there has been free provision or there have been subsidies, and that has been the challenge in public sector. So if we want to talk about public sector pricing strategy, it can be improved by making sure that we follow this proper method of pricing in public sector. All right, this is the pricing method. ये मैं जानबूझ के अभी शॉर्ट में बात कर रहा हूँ. अगर तुम अपने नोट्स को चेक करोगे, while teaching you India before 91, I taught you things on these. The second challenge that public sector faces is overstaffing. More people than what is required in the firm. More people than what is required in the firm. And what does overstaffing do? Increases expenses. खर्चे बढ़ जाते हैं firm के overstaffing की वजह से. If you have overstaffing, the expenditure of the firm will be high. And if you have overstaffing, then work responsibility is low. जैसे हमारी टीम आज बैटिंग कर रही थी, सबको लग रहा था अगले वाला बना देगा कुछ ना कुछ. So that is work responsibility low, that everybody thinks the other one will do the work, and that results in decline. So that's overstaffing creating an issue. Then the third reason why we have had issues is lack of technological upgradation. So that's another thing that creates a problem. Techniques are still outdated and they lose in competition. All right. If you compare the app of a public sector bank with app of a private sector bank, you will understand what is lack of technical upgradation. All right. Or what I was telling you yesterday, watch Doordarshan and watch a private channel. It's a full-blown understanding of lack of technical upgradation. That helps us understand that when technically people don't upgrade. So public sector has this issue. Technical upgradation is low, and that means high cost of production. If you have better technology, your cost of production is in control. So if there is lack of technical upgradation, that creates high cost of production. Then, the other problem is political interference. And that is lack of autonomy. This also leads to bureaucratic delays. So there is political interference in the market, political interference in appointment, political interference in choice of raw material, political interference in starting a project, and then that is lack of autonomy. And that lack of autonomy also creates bureaucratic delays. Bureaucratic delays like you send a file for permission and you are not getting it back on time. So you need to buy a new technology, or you need to buy a new machine, you need to improve your production capacity, but you are just not getting the return. You understand that? In that case, if the permissions are not granted on time, that makes you behind the curve. All right? So that's another factor, political interference. Then there is another factor, lack of capital infusion. And this results in inefficiency. Lack of capital infusion, and that lack of capital infusion creates inefficiency. Now that's another challenge that we have when we talk about public sector enterprises. Another is wage cap. This is upper limit on wages. You can't pay wage beyond a limit, and that means good talent you can't attract, especially international talent. All right, so there is wage cap resulting in discouraging quality workers. Wage cap resulting in discouraging quality workers. So many times public sector loses out on good quality workers because of the wage cap that they see around them. And in fact, there has been a suggestion since very long to remove this wage cap. Unfortunately, that's not yet working. Another problem is lack of timely appointment. Of head of the firm. CEO, CMD, not get appointed timely. lack of timely appointment of head of the firm. So people like CEO, CMDs of an institution not appointed on time. That becomes again a factor in public sector, which is a trouble part in many cases. Because if you remain headless for months, if you remain headless for 1 year, then obviously your decision making will suffer. You won't be able to take your decisions on time, and that's again a factor that creates problems in public sector. So that is again something that is discouraging public sector production system. All right, that is a factor that is discouraging public sector production system. Then, so if they talk to you, again I repeat, about critical analysis of requirement of reforms, this will be your beginning point, that these are the requirements of reform. Then of course you will write one more paragraph of around 70, 60, 70 words, like this should be your 100 words or 80 words. And then the last 50 words can be about how reforms can be done or what kind of reforms will be needed. You understand that? But the bulk of your answer, the real content, if the question is to analyze the requirement of reform, then they are talking about the challenges of public sector. All right? रिफॉर्म वर्ड देख के नहीं तो हमें कभी कभी लगता है अच्छा पब्लिक सेक्टर रिफॉर्म पूछा तो वो लिखने लग जाते हैं. तो रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ रिफॉर्म पूछा जा रहा है कि आप पब्लिक सेक्टर को कैसे रिफॉर्म करेंगे, क्यों रिफॉर्म करने की जरूरत आती है. क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस का मतलब क्या हुआ? You will talk about, understand this, introduction should be talking about objective of public sector, why they were created, maybe 30 words on that. Then 70 words of where they didn't go well, or 80 words on where they didn't go well, the requirement. And then last 30, 40 words on how they can do better. You understand that? So that kind of structuring we need to learn. अगर इसी question को change कर दूं और बोलूं critically analyze the steps for reform of public sector. Now you will write 20 words on objectives of public sector and 30, 35 words, 40 words for all of these, and then 80 words on steps taken for reforms and their relevance. You understand that? Because now I have changed the question from requirement of reforms to the question where I'm talking about productivity of reforms or idea of reforms. तो हमेशा conscious रहोगे कि language क्या use कर रहे हैं. Whatever language they are using will decide what answer you will be writing. All right. Now you give a heading. You write steps taken for public sector reforms. Yes, yes. No, critical analysis implies that you take the wholesome view. That is why critical. If it was only elaborate, then we would have elaborated on these in 100 words. But the question is critically analyze. That means talk about why reforms have been needed, but talk about what was the basic objective of public sector, where did they fail, and hence reform needed. You see that kind of a thing. All right. Now, if we talk about the steps that have been taken, within those steps taken, you write one. Users cost approach is recovering the cost of production. Good afternoon, all of you who are joining me now. Users cost approach is effect of, recovering your cost of production. Overstaffing, railways, state electricity board. You name a public sector and it is overstaffed. ठीक है, जो public sector company है, वो overstaffed है. A banking is overstaffed. All right, so there are several companies which are overstaffed in public sector. अभी बात करेंगे उस पे क्या चीजें हैं. Then what are the steps? Yes, yes. Yes, so explain, critically analyze. Explain is again analyze with reasons. Critically analyzes, analyze wholesome, everything that you should be writing. All right, that kind of a thing. See, understand this. When they say vacancy in railways, when you talk about people retiring and hence vacancy is created, but people retiring because of which is already overstaffed. अब जैसे एक ये बस है. इस बस में कैपेसिटी है 100 लोगों की, इसमें 150 लोग भरे हुए हैं, इनमें से 50 लोग निकले, कोई कहता है 50 लोग निकले, अब तुम्हें 50 लेने चाहिए, जायज़ है नाजायज़ है? बस यही वैकेंसी की कहानी है, ठीक है। पहले से ठूस के रखे हुए हैं, अब जब लोग रिटायर कर रहे हैं तो कहते हैं वैकेंसी क्रिएट हो रहा है। वैकेंसी थोड़ी क्रिएट हो रहा है, वो तो थोड़ा सा बोझ हल्का हो रहा है, ठीक है। प्लस अ लॉट ऑफ बर्डन इज ऑन द लोअर एंड ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर ड्यू टू इनडिस्क्रिमिनेट हायरिंग, and you will see vacancy on the upper end because they are not hiring. You see that? So that becomes also a margin that creates a problem. कि किस चीज़ के लिए वैकेंसी है? तो मान लो मैनेजरियल पोस्ट के लिए, टेक्निकल पोस्ट के लिए वैकेंसी है, हो सकती है, बट ओवर स्टाफिंग कहाँ है? लोअर एंड पे, ठीक है। ऑल राइट, नाउ सी दिस, when we talk about steps taken to reform public sector, you write first within that provision of autonomy. Provision of autonomy. मैं एक बात आपको लिखवाना भूल गया चैलेंजेस में, वो ऐड कर लो, हाई कैपिटल आउटपुट रेशियो, दैट्स अनदर चैलेंज ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर, हाई कैपिटल आउटपुट रेशियो, I forgot making you write that, high capital output ratio. Now, when we talk about steps for reforms, first, provision of autonomy. Now, you know what? The various provisions you can talk of: autonomy, monetization, disinvestment, privatization. These are all steps to reform public sector. तो हमने बात क्या की, what is the objective of public sector, followed by what are the steps we will be taking or we can take, followed by what further can be done. All right, that is the aspect in it. So when we talk about provision of autonomy, this provision of autonomy means autonomy from whom? Autonomy from the ministry. That is the meaning of autonomy. All right, that freedom to make decisions. Freedom to make decisions. And freedom from whom? Freedom from ministry. You know, that they should have autonomy, their board of directors should be made free to take their own calls. All right, they should have autonomy, their board of directors should be made free to take these calls. All right. Now, this whole autonomy thing started 1992. Government of India started creating a system of memorandum of understanding. And this memorandum of understanding to be signed between the public sector and the concerned ministry. All right, this memorandum, I can believe all of us understand what is a memorandum of understanding. There is a document legally certified regarding understanding or acknowledgement between two sets of people. That will be memorandum of understanding. So 1991-2, they started with memorandum of understanding to be signed between the central public sector unit. When I say unit, I mean enterprise as well as undertaking. मैं फिर रिपीट कर दूं, सेंट्रल पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइज, स्टेट पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइज एंड सेंट्रल पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग, स्टेट पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग. एंटरप्राइज वर्ड का मतलब दे हैव बीन क्रिएटेड थ्रू कंपनीज एक्ट. अंडरटेकिंग वर्ड का मतलब they have been created through a special act of parliament. By the latest census survey report that we have, there are 389 central public sector enterprises. 389 central public sector enterprises, out of which 255 are functional. All right, 389 central public sector enterprises, out of which 255 are functional. All right. 108 have not yet started functioning. Some of them are 30 years old also, but they have not yet started functioning. And 26 are under liquidation. जिनको क्लोज किया जा रहा है या बेचा जा रहा है. All right, that is the distribution. 389 CPSEs, Central Public Sector Enterprises, out of which 255 functional, 126, sorry, 108 have not yet started functioning, and 26 at different stages of liquidation, being sold out, closed, and so on. This is the status for CPSE. There are 277 CPSUs, Central Public Sector Undertaking. 277 Central Public Sector Undertaking, out of which 231 are functional and 46 are closed down. They are not functioning. When we say they are not functioning, it doesn't mean workers are not getting wage. They're still getting their wage, but the enterprise and undertaking is not functioning. All right, so 46 are not functioning. About state public sector units, we hardly have information. One information that we have is around 1.5 years ago, that we have 974 state public sector enterprises. And out of these 974 state public sector enterprises, 601 are functional. About the status of rest, we have no idea, that how many of them are not starting to work and how many of them are in the state of closure. But 601 are functional, is that we know. The total loss of state public sector enterprises is 74,000 crore. You know, that is the total loss of state public sector enterprises, 74,000 crore. The total loss of central public sector enterprises, which are non-oil companies, like oil marketing companies are making profit, and huge profit, no doubt. But if we take the non-oil marketing companies, then their total loss is around 63,000 crore. So we are looking at some big numbers here, that they are making huge losses. And yes, when I say these numbers, we don't include the banking units in it. All right, when I say these numbers, then the banking units don't get included in that. Now, when we talk about the whole idea here, this memorandum of understanding was signed between central public sector units and concerned ministry. कंसर्न्ड मिनिस्ट्री मतलब अगर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ टेक्सटाइल है तो वो साइन कर लेंगे, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ स्टील है तो वो साइन कर लेंगे. जिस भी मिनिस्ट्री के अंदर वो यूनिट आती है उनके साथ ये एमओयू साइन होगा. एंड दिस एमओयू विल हैव डिटेल्स ऑफ ऑल operational decisions. This MOU will have details of all operational decisions. All operational decisions like price target, output target, profit target, and so on. You know, all decisions needed to apply. So target of price, target of output, target of profit, all these decisions the MOU will contain. And the rule is, once the MOU has been signed, then for all operational purposes, the ministry will not interfere in the activities of public sector. Once the MOU has been signed, then for operational purposes, the ministry will not interfere in the activities of public sector. The public sector will also not have to seek the permission of ministry. All right, operational purposes के लिए ministry interfere नहीं करेंगे और public sector को ministry की permission लेने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं है. So once the MOU has been signed, the public sector, the ministry will not interfere in operational decisions of public sector. The ministry will not interfere in operational decision of public sector. That is one. And the public sector will also not have to seek day-to-day methods from the ministry. But for investment decisions, joint venture, appointments, promotions, for all these things they will still have to take the permission of the ministry. कि बाकी decisions के लिए कि joint venture कर सकते हैं या नहीं, investments कर सकते हैं या नहीं, नए workers employ कर सकते हैं या नहीं, promotions दे सकते हैं या नहीं, इन सब के लिए उनको अभी भी ministry से permission लेनी पड़ेगी. This became a rule as under MOU. So many public sector would complain that, look, we have signed an MOU, but it's not giving us the freedom that we would like. So in 1997, government created a system of Navratna. This was Mr. P. Chidambaram's budget. Many people called it the dream budget, etc. So government created a system of Navratna in which they said we will evaluate the public sector enterprise on the basis of their performance. We will evaluate the public sector enterprise on the basis of their performance. If they perform well, then we will give them, or we'll be willing to give them more freedom, and we will classify them as Navratnas. In fact, in 1997 budget, they identified 9 Navratnas. So since they identified these 9 Navratnas, so the name Navratna, as it was given. Now, they will be identified on the basis of turnover. Turnover is revenue earned by sale of commodity and service. That is turnover. Revenue earned by sale of commodity and service. Or net worth. Net worth is total assets minus total liability. Because net worth shows the true amount of an institution or a firm's or an individual's stature. एक पर्सन के स्टेचर कितना है, उनका अमाउंट कितना है. जैसे ये एग्जांपल मैं हमेशा क्लासेस में देता हूँ कि अगर मैं आपको बोलूँ मेरे पास आई हैव कार्स वर्थ 1 crore rupees, you will say nice sir, and I have a house of 2 crore rupees, you will say even better, and I have a loan of 6 crore rupees. Now my net worth makes me look the real thing. My assets are making me look rich. मेरे assets देख के लगेगा बड़े अमीर आदमी हैं, पर मेरे नेटवर्थ से पता चलेगा कि मेरी हालत ठीक नहीं है. तो पब्लिक सेक्टर को भी बताया गया नेटवर्थ चेक किया जाए. So what is their net worth? How much are their liabilities and their assets? And of course, there is profit that they earn, which is revenue minus cost. So it was decided that these will become the criteria. And if the public sector does well on this criteria, we will continue with them. If they don't do well with on these criteria, we will not be implementing things or will not continue with them or will not give them more freedom. Now, this was 1997. Unfortunately, the government did not last. It fell down. The next governments did not discontinue the policy, but they did not continue it too in the whole zeal. So, between 97 and 2010, the total number of public sectors in Navratna were increased from 9 to 11. So now there were 11 public sector firms in Navratna. UPA 1 government announced that we will not be privatizing any public sector because they were supported by the Communist Party. So obviously, no question that they could even think of privatization. So even I debate privatization at my home only when we are eating outside. Because there is a huge belief among people on the left side that no privatization is required. So fair enough. Now, but the point is that when you talk about things, nothing was done also. Like privatize नहीं करेंगे ठीक है, सुधार तो करेंगे, सुधार भी नहीं किए, तो पब्लिक सेक्टर की हालत और पतली होती गई. इसमें दिक्कत क्या है? पब्लिक सेक्टर खराब परफॉर्म करें. It disturbs fiscal consolidation. When you are talking about a public sector bad performance, government has to bear the burden of their bad performance because somebody got to foot the bill. If my electricity boards are running with 5 lakh crore of loss, somebody will have to pay that 5 lakh crore, and that somebody will be whom? The owner of those electricity boards. And who are the owners? The state governments. And the state governments don't have the money, so where will they finally take it from? The central government. ये समझना ये जरूरी है. आप सोच के देखिए, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट हार्ड प्रेस्ड रहते हैं, कहते हैं पैसा नहीं है, पैसा नहीं है. स्टेट गवर्नमेंट बोलते हैं पैसा नहीं है, पैसा नहीं है. और 2018 का हमारा टैक्स कलेक्शन था, 2018 की बात कर रहा हूं. 2018 the total tax collection was 12 lakh crore, and 2024 the projected tax collection is 22 lakh crore. 4 साल में टैक्स कलेक्शन 90% बढ़ गया, और उसके बाद भी रो रहे हैं कि हमें पैसा नहीं है. और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट भी अपना रोते हैं हमें पैसा नहीं है. उनको डिवॉल्व भी हो रहे हैं टैक्सेस। तो ये रोना इसलिए हम कब रोना रोते हैं सोचिए। अब आप एक माइक्रो लेवल पे आ जाओ, समटाइम्स यू विल सी रिच पीपल always sad, no money, what to do, expenses are so much. They don't realize that their income is high, but they have made expenses beyond their income, which is keeping them look like a poor. Our government is also not realizing that. You know, both central and state level. हम आइडियोलॉजी पे भी कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करेंगे कि पब्लिक सेक्टर को एफिशिएंट बनाया जाए, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी डाली जाए, बेच दिया जाए जहां जरूरत है, और हम नए नए स्कीम्स भी लाएंगे। हम भारतमाला भी करेंगे, सागरमाला भी करेंगे, जल जीवन भी करेंगे, आवास योजना भी करेंगे, उज्ज्वला योजना भी करेंगे। तो हम ये भी करेंगे, साथ में हम वहीं नहीं रुकेंगे, सिर्फ हम रिहैबिलिटेशन ऑफ सिस्टम्स भी करेंगे। जैसे हम एक civic programs run करेंगे, like we reconstructed the whole India Gate area and all that। तो हम सारा कुछ करेंगे, तो फिर पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे इन सब के लिए? Where will the money come from? और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ने तो और हालत खराब कर रखी है। वहां पर तो जिसको मिनिस्टर नहीं बना सकते उनको स्टेट पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइज का चेयरमैन बना दो। भाई साहब आप यहां से खाइए, आपको बंगला मिल जाएगा, गाड़ी मिल जाएगी, और खाने के लिए अपॉइंटमेंट है, साथ में लीजेस हैं, कंस्ट्रक्शन लीज है, प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, तो आप यहां से खा पी लो, सपोर्ट हम ही करते रहो। सो इफ दैट बिकम्स द पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस रोल, that cannot be productive for the country. We are struggling, and you know what is the problem? The problem is we are not calling a spade a spade. ये बातें acknowledge नहीं कर रहे, नाटक करते हैं जैसे ये सब है ही नहीं। और पॉलिटिशियंस नाटक करते हैं मेरे समझ में आता है, एकेडमिशियंस नाटक करते हैं मेरे समझ में नहीं आता। शायद ट्विटर पॉपुलैरिटी की चिंता सबको है, तो इसीलिए नाटक करते हैं कि ये क्यों हो रहा है। क्योंकि ये ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ मैं जानता हूं, कोई गहरा राज है जिसको मैंने कहीं से ढूंढ के निकाला। इट्स एविडेंट इन आवर सिस्टम। You guys are not a part of the system, but you know very well how state public sector enterprises are run, how state public sector undertakings are manipulated, especially at state level. उनको कोई देखने वाला तक नहीं है। This is the challenge. Now again I repeat, that doesn't mean we have to privatize all. What it means is we have to be conscious that they should be made to perform well, and we should be conscious about the role of public sector, which I was making you write yesterday, the role of public sector in modern India. That what is the role of public sector in modern India? Why are we having them? What is the objective of having a public sector? So redefine that. It's not at all to say that public sector won't be needed, but redefine the role in a market economic system which we want to create. So develop your debate in the mind like that. तो एक बार अगर हम ये बातें develop करने लगेंगे, then we are in a position to understand that okay, what should be the reform. So what do we do now? 1997 it was like this. For 12-13 years nothing much was done. 2010 again Pranab Mukherjee ji was the finance minister. He was again someone left of center, loved public sectors like anything. You know, some people are there in India still living, and they will live long, I'm sure, but they have huge love for public sector, and they are in the government. Somehow they have an emotional attachment, an ideological attachment. Imagine Air India bleeding us of money every year, not creating any efficiency, serving the rich, and then Derek O'Brien ji, he was the chairman of a joint parliamentary committee established for suggesting about Air India, suggests Air India is a jewel in the crown. I never knew that jewels in the crown make you bleed money. I always thought they get you money. But this jewel in the crown was making me bleed money. Because every year I would be giving 6,100 crore rupees on it. And these guys are suggesting all this. So I'm just trying to highlight to you that when you read that public sector should be preserved or protected, well, there should be no blanket explanation there. The explanation there is public sector should be evaluated, judged, understood for their requirement, and those which will be required should be continued with, and those which are not required should gradually be dispensed away with. Whether we close them down, whether we sell them off, that's a separate story altogether. That again has a call that has to be taken, but we got to take a call on them. That call we have not taken openly. Chip chip ke hum kar rahe hain. 108 public sectors, 26 public sectors under liquidation and closure. That's happening. but we are not doing it openly per se. So that is what a stand should be taken. So what do we do? In 2010, Pranab Mukherjee ji was the finance minister. He introduces a system of Maharatna, Navratna and Miniratna. Miniratna category 1 and 2. So that was 2010 that we introduced. So 2010, we introduced Miniratna, category 2 and category 1, Navratna and Maharatna. Yes, we started with reasons for poor performance of public sector in India. No, removing the wage cap will not result in increasing burdening on funds. You will pay according to your capabilities. That is the idea. That your capability to pay. Why should I pay somebody higher than what I can? But if I can pay higher, why not? Imagine RBI governor is paid 2.5 lakh rupees. We pay that to entry-level teachers at Next IAS. I mean, something we got to realize कि हम आरबीआई गवर्नर हैं वो भाई, उनकी कुछ इज्जत होनी चाहिए. जो इनिशियल लेवल पे टीचिंग शुरू कर रहे हैं कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट में, अगर उनको आप उतने ही पैसे दे रहे हैं और आप कहेंगे नहीं सर उस काम में वो डिफरेंट तरह का काम है, वहाँ पर्क्स मिलते हैं, एक रिस्पेक्ट है सोसाइटी में. फाइनली इट ऑल बॉइल्स डाउन टू वेयर यू आर आफ्टर योर रिटायरमेंट. एंड दिस आई एम सेइंग टू यू एज एन इकोनॉमिस्ट. घूस लेने की अगर आदत है तो अलग बात है, तब तुम चोर हो, ठीक है, और अपने पब्लिक अथॉरिटी को यूज कर रहे हो चोरी के लिए, तो डकैती करके देश को लूट के अमीर होना नहीं होता. इससे अच्छा है कि हम लोगों को ये बोलें कि उन पे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हाई है. आप सोचिए आरबीआई गवर्नर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कितनी है और उसके हिसाब से उनको क्या पेमेंट मिलना चाहिए. ये इंपॉर्टेंट बात है. हमें ये सोचना चाहिए एक सेक्रेटरी लेवल आदमी की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कितनी है और उनकी क्या पेमेंट होनी चाहिए. एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट को 56,000 नहीं 72,000 की सैलरी देते हैं हम, उनकी इतनी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. 72,000 सैलरी ऑफ एन एकेडमिक कोच एट नेक्स्ट आईएएस. सैलरीज रिफ्लेक्ट योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. आपकी जिम्मेवारी क्या है. मैं आपको ऑफर नहीं दे रहा हूं नेक्स्ट आईएएस के लिए मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि क्या मार्केट है अभी. मार्केट इज समथिंग वेयर सम सेक्टर्स आर पेइंग हाई, सो गवर्नमेंट विल हैव टू लर्न टू पे हाई to people on whom they are putting big responsibility, so that they are not demoralized by those who have more money who demoralize them. Otherwise तुम सोच के देखो, एक पुलिस ऑफिसर को या एक सरकारी ऑफिसर को पेज 3 पे आने की क्या जरूरत है. हंगर टू बी रिकॉग्नाइज्ड ही तो है. इस हंगर की क्या जरूरत है भाई, आप सोच के देखिए. क्यों ये हंगर आता है? क्योंकि पैसे आ नहीं रहे जेब में ज्यादा. हर आदमी घूस कमा नहीं सकता. संस्कार नाम की भी एक चीज होती है. So there is something called culture. So everybody can't take bribes and all. But somehow they want to feel important. All of us would like to feel important. And my point is just simple. Pay salary conducive to the responsibility being put. SBI being the largest bank of India, and the chairman of SBI gets 3 lakh rupees per month. Chairman of HDFC is getting around 15 lakh rupees per month. इतना ही तो शर्म कर ले कि एसबीआई के मैनेजर छोड़कर एचडीएफसी ना चला जाए. ये बात कह रहा हूं. तो सरकार को सीखना तो पड़ेगा ज्यादा पैसे देना, क्योंकि सरकार को देना चाहिए. लेकिन क्यों नहीं दे पा रही सरकार ये ज्यादा पैसे? क्योंकि हमने लोअर लेवल पे लंगर लगा रखा है. पियोन को 30,000. वाई शुड वी गिव अ पियोन 30,000 रुपीज? एक पीएन को 30,000 रुपीज देने का मतलब सोचिए, एंट्री लेवल पे इंजीनियर को 15,000 देते हैं और पीएन को 30,000 देते हैं. इंजीनियर बेचारा देख रहा है वही ठीक था, बेफालतू इतनी मेहनत कर ली लाइफ में. That's wrong incentive to grow with. My point is that identify the market, pay people at lower level what is conducive, make it a minimum wage, I don't mind that, but don't pay people higher just because you want to keep the mass happy and want to make the ideological people feel happy. Get the market at least, see what the market is willing to pay. और मैं आपको इस बारे में पहले भी लेक्चर दे चुका हूं कि इस चीज में क्या होता है, सरकारी नौकरी एक लॉटरी बन गई है अब. Because the same PN will get paid 7,500, 8,000 rupees if the person is working outside in the market. Maybe 9,000 if the person is very lucky. Now the difference is 3 times. तो लोग चक्कर में रहते हैं ये बन जाऊं किसी तरह. अपना दिए जा रहे हैं, एग्जाम दिए जा रहे हैं, चीजें कर रहे हैं. That is not something which we should want to do. Make the private sector work comparatively more friendly to the workers at lower end, I'm saying. Make the public sector pay better at the upper end and all that, and pay lower at the lower end, and all that will make an even market where it should not matter whether I'm working for the private or the public. It should be a matter of choice. अगर तुम सरकारी नौकरी इसलिए कर रहे हो क्योंकि तुम्हें परमानेंट नौकरी मिल जाएगी, ये रॉन्ग रीजन है उसको चुनने का. मेरा एप्टीट्यूड नहीं है, मुझे मतलब नहीं है, पर चलो एक परमानेंट नौकरी तो रहेगी. और हम इन रॉन्ग रीजन से ये काम कर रहे होते हैं. ये बात समझा रहा हूं. नौकरी तुम्हारी सारी परमानेंट है अगर तुम अच्छे से काम कर रहे हो, और सारी टेम्पररी है अगर ठीक से काम नहीं करोगे, क्योंकि लाइफ ही टेम्पररी है. चल रहे हो, मोटरसाइकिल उलट गया, निकल लिया ऊपर, हो गई परमानेंट नौकरी. ये समझाना चाह रहा हूं that this whole mindset has to change if we want to improve public sector. So that is where the trouble started coming in India, that we started getting the wrong reasons to choose a job. That we would do. कुछ लोग तो अब आपके जनरेशन में ये बीमारी ज्यादा देख रहा हूं, मेरे जनरेशन में भी थी. कुछ लोग सोच के जाते थे पब्लिक सेक्टर में कि मैं ब्राइब लूंगा, प्लान्ड कि मैं जाऊंगा पैसे खाऊंगा, और बेशर्मी से बोलते भी हैं ये बात. That shows the moral degeneration of society. ये समझाना चाह रहा हूं अगेन कि अगर ये हरकत करने आ रहे हैं और पब्लिक सेक्टर में कैसे पैसे खाएंगे. आप सोच के देखिए, कोई प्राइवेट सेक्टर वाला पैसे देगा उनको, और उनको पैसे देने के बाद ये प्राइवेट सेक्टर वाला क्या करेगा? नॉर्मल लोगों को लूटेगा. तो जब ये कहते हैं मैं पैसे खाऊंगा, तो आपके सामने आपको कह रहे हैं कि मैं तुम्हारे लूटने का सिस्टम बनाऊंगा, और हम ये सुनकर रिएक्ट भी नहीं करते. जो पैसे खा रहे हैं वो ऐसा कर रहे हैं, हम उन पे रिएक्ट भी, उनको कहते भी नहीं है कि भाई तुम चोर आदमी हो, लीचड़ हो, तुम्हारे साथ संबंध नहीं रखना मुझे. हमें लगता है नहीं हमारी कोई मदद कर देंगे. कभी कभी लगता है हमारे रिलेटिव हैं, इनको कैसे बोल दें. ये समझाना चाह रहा हूं तुम्हें. गेट ऑक्यूपाइड, गेट बिजी, and try at least avoiding people who are unfair. My grandfather had told me something that remains with me till today. He had told me once, I'd asked him that what is the difference in corruption in India in 50s and 90s. He said in 50s the corrupts were identified and people would keep away from them. In 90s the honest are identified and people keep away from them. So he said that is the problem that you see in India at the moment, which worries me. And I see that in the next 30 years things have not become much better compared to what he had said. So that is what I'm trying to tell you, that we need to improve on public sector performance for things to get better. And again, if you ask me, it all boils down to how we have educated our people. If we have not educated people well, हम बचपन से ही आप पे क्या प्रेशर डालते हैं, तुम फर्स्ट आ जाओ, मतलब तुम्हें लीडरशिप में रहना है, ऊपर ही रहना है, और कैसे रहना है वो मैटर नहीं करता. 2 क्वेश्चन आपस में देख लो एक दूसरे से. ये अच्छे बच्चों को करते देखता हूं मैं, हमारे समय भी कर लेते थे. तो वो किसी ने पीछे से ऐसे दिखा दिया, किसी ने इशारे से बता दिया अगर एमसीक्यू का क्वेश्चन है तो क्या आंसर है. रियलाइज ही नहीं करते कि ये चीटिंग है, और मुझे खड़ूस बोलते थे क्योंकि मैं रियलाइज करता था ये चीटिंग है, और ना करता था ना करने देता था. तो क्लास में मुझे बड़ा परेशान रहते थे. कभी कभी 12th में तो मुझे याद है कुछ लोग बहुत दुखी रहते थे, because I would make sure I won't let it happen. Now I realize maybe I was a kid, but I still make sure that wherever I am, I try my best that things don't go wrong. Because फिर वही बात है, दूसरों के लिए तो सब सोशलिस्ट है ना, मैं सोशलिस्ट हूं. किनके लिए? तुम सैक्रिफाइस करो. तुम्हारी जमीन तुम्हें दे देनी चाहिए लैंड रिफॉर्म में. आपके पास भी तो 4 रूम का घर है, एक कमरा गरीब को दे देते. ये प्रैक्टिकल थोड़ी है. ऐसे सोशलिस्ट भरे हुए हैं हमारे देश में. ये इंडिया की सोशलिज्म है. फ्रस्ट्रेशन एट बीइंग पुअर. तो ये मैं समझाना चाह रहा हूं आपको, दैट इफ वी कैन अपग्रेड that's India's upliftment. So what do these things represent? So we begin with that. You write Mini Ratna category 2. Few things are there, the details are there in your notes, but I wanted you to write down few things so that you can have a perspective on what we are doing. 6100 crore, Air India 6100 crore. Not 61,000, 6100 crore. ये देखिए आपके ऑनलाइन फ्रेंड्स लिख भी रहे हैं, सर अप्लाई करने का क्या प्रोसेस है नेक्स्ट आईएएस में? We don't need to do downward revision, Lydia. We just need to control the perks at lower level. All right. Let's see this then. You write Miniratna category 2, and in that you write all those central public sector units, all those central public sector units which earn profit, and have a positive net worth. Remember one thing in this, all these things that you will write, earn profit, positive net worth, this has to be for 3 years. The average of 3 years is taken. There is a provision that if you don't perform, you can be downgraded. But till now, we have not had an instance of downgradation. All right, but there is a provision that if you don't perform well, we'll downgrade you. All right, so right, which earn profit and have a positive net worth can qualify in this category. Can qualify in this category. Remember one more thing in that. When we say can qualify, it means the qualification is not automatic. It's not that they will qualify. They can qualify in this category, provided Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Industry feel that they fulfill the other obligations to qualify. All right. The decision on qualification is taken by Department for Promotion of Internal Industry and Internal Trade. Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT. All right. So Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, they take a call on this. You write in this, they have the freedom to invest up to rupees 300 crore or their net worth whichever is lesser. So that is one thing that is done, that they will have the freedom to invest up to 300 crore. If their net worth is more than 300 crore, they can invest up to 300 crore. If the net worth is less than 300 crore, then they can invest up to their net worth. All right, whichever is lesser. And in the same thing you write, there are 16 such firms in India. The number keeps changing at times on a kind of weekly basis, but more or less it will remain in the same domain. All right, sometimes +1, sometimes a -1, and so on. Then you write -1 होता है अगर इन्हें अपग्रेड करके अगले कैटेगरी में डाल दिया जाता है तो माइनस हो जाते हैं. You write next, Miniratna category 1, and you write all those central public sector units, which have a minimum net worth which have a minimum net worth of rupees 300 crore and which earn profit for 3 consecutive years or which have earned a minimum profit of rupees 30 crore in one of the last 3 years, can qualify in this category. They have the freedom, after a full stop, they have the freedom to invest up to rupees 500 crore or their net worth whichever is lesser. And you write there are 57, there are 57 such firms in India. Then you write next, Navratna. You write all those central public sector units, which have or make it which have been Mini Ratna, and they can be Mini Ratna of any category. So which have been Mini Ratna of any category for 3 consecutive years and which score a minimum of 60 points out of 100 given on 6 criteria by the government. Now remember, I'm deliberately not making you write the criteria, but from prelims point of view, you just might need that. I've given you the details in your notes where you will get the criteria and the points attached to those criteria. The criteria like earnings per share, criteria like the proportion of wage as a ratio of total turnover, criteria like profit after depreciation as a ratio of total income earned. So these are the criteria typically. Out of these 6 criteria, they are judged. If they do well, then they're given good points. And if they score above 60 points and they have been a Mini Ratna for 3 years, they qualify as Navratnas. In the same thing you write, they have the freedom, they have the freedom to invest up to rupees 1000 crore, up to rupees 1000 crore, comma, to make appointments till general manager level and to take all operational decisions. To take all operational decisions. All operational decisions. All right. These are things that have been said or that we talk about for Navratna. Operational decisions, all of you understand: pricing decision, output decision, profit, and so on. And there are 13 Navratnas in India, 1-3, 13 Navratnas. In some places you might see 15, but it has been changed now because recently Power Grid Corporation of India Limited and HPCL have been upgraded to Maharatna. So earlier they were Navratnas, so sometimes some of the websites have not yet revised themselves, तो वो 15 लिख देते हैं, but इनको अब Maharatna बना दिया गया है, तो इसीलिए 13 Navratnas and now 12 Maharatnas actually. Now then you write next Maharatna. And you write in that all those central public sector units, all those central public sector units which have been Navratna for 3 consecutive years, which have been Navratna for 3 consecutive years, and which earn a minimum net worth, a minimum turnover. I said net worth, correction, make it turnover. A minimum turnover of rupees 25,000 crore, rupees 25,000 crore, comma, minimum net worth of rupees 15,000 crore, and minimum profit of rupees 5,000 crore can qualify in this category. Full stop. They have the freedom to make investment up to rupees up to rupees 5,000 crore, 5,000 crore, comma, to enter into foreign collaborations, to enter into foreign collaborations, comma, to make all appointments, to make all appointments till general manager level, till CEO level, make all appointments till CEO level. Now I'll tell you what it means. It means that they can make all appointments except the board of directors. If they can make appointments till CEO level, it means they can make all appointments except the board of directors. Only the board of directors will be selected by the government. And, in the same thing you write, and take all operational decisions. Take all operational decisions. And there are 12 Maharatnas in India. 12 Maharatnas in India. These are Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. Again, I'm giving you these names from prelims point of view, that in case in the prelims exam they give you a statement that this is a Maharatna. So you should know which one is a Maharatna. Once you know that, you would know which ones are not. All right, that kind of a thing. So Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, Bharat Petrochemicals Limited, Coal India Limited, Gas Authority of India Limited, Indian Oil Corporation, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, National Thermal Power Corporation, Steel Authority of India Limited, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, Power Finance Corporation, Rural Electricity Corporation, and Hindustan Petrochemicals Limited. These are the 12 Maharatnas that India has now proclaimed. All the three, every criteria should be fulfilled. I'm sure with rest of them you will be comfortable. This PFC is for Power Finance Corporation. They are actually refinancing firms. Power sector companies ko money arrange karke dete hain. Power Finance Corporation. And this REC is Rural Electrification Corporation. This was also the nodal body for Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. They were the ones responsible for developing it. Rural Electrification Corporation. And this is Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, PGCIL. Power Grid Corporation of India Limited. In case you struggle with any name later on, send me a message, I'll send you the answer. All right, but this is, generally these are the 12. If you remember the short forms, it will be enough. Again, I repeat, in your optional, I don't think you will need to use this. I'm giving it to you from your prelims point of view, that you should have these names. Now, there are 2-3 advantages of this kind of mechanism, that when we give autonomy and all, this way, autonomy, classification. So you write advantages of this method. Sorry, the classification is done by them. All right. So first advantage, you write it encourages performance there is a question that might have come to your mind also. It says why category 2 is before category 1. Honestly, I have no idea, why it is like that. It's just the way government has presented here. I have no idea at all why they have done this. You know, Power Grid Corporation of India Limited, apart from HPCL. It's written on the board now, so Rishi, you should have an understanding. Okay. You write then. Could you tell me the line you wrote? Yeah, it encourages the performance of public sector encourages the performance of public sector now. See, one of your friend asks me online, in which category will be Scooters India? Scooters India is in the category of needs a ratn. उनको कोई एस्ट्रोलॉजिकल हेल्प की अब जरूरत है. दे नीड अ रत्न नाउ. उनको कुछ पत्थर वत्थर दिया जाए ताकि वो कुछ ठीक कर सके. तो जब भी आपको दिखे कोई इस तरह के स्कूटर्स इंडिया जैसी कंपनी, वो नीड्स अ रत्न कंपनी है. दे नीड सम डिवाइन इंटरफेरेंस नाउ. ऑल राइट, you write by of public sector by incentivizing higher investment for higher autonomy. It's like you invest more, grow more, get more autonomy. That's a good idea, performance oriented. All right. It doesn't restrict them not to grow, kind of. Second is, two, you write, it develops competitive spirit. It develops competitive spirit in public sector. It develops competitive spirit in public sector as higher profit and higher turnover provide more autonomy. And you know what is the good news out there? That at least we are not reserving industries for them. You know, that is the benefit here. Reservation of industries for them would make them rather more redundant and less competitive compared to letting them, you think of it, when we talk about Air India exposed or banks getting exposed in India, or for that matter, you know, other public sectors at times getting exposed, most of the times you will see, once we liberalized, allowed private sector, the public sector, especially those who have been living with a reserved industry status, were clueless about how to compete. They had lived with that status of producer dominates. So I can give any kind of service and the consumer will come to me. Now that syndrome is changing in India, or has been changing in India. Consumer starts getting better deal from people. So point is, if people are not willing to change that, if that dynamism is missing, then public sector does lose out. Please recall the examples I keep telling you. Now we have been doing these discussions for so long in the class that I've always thought that these classes will take us lesser time because I've already put the seeds in your mind. For example, why doesn't MTNL send us a message to take their subscription? Ideally, they should be doing it. They are not the market leaders and they are surviving and they are a commercial company. MTNL is doing nothing social. कोई ये नहीं कह सकते कि MTNL रिमोट एरिया कनेक्टिविटी दे रहे हैं या MTNL भारत नेट में मदद कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि MTNL दिल्ली और मुंबई इन्हीं दो जगहों पे है. महानगर टेलीफोन निगम लिमिटेड नाम है उनका. तो एक मैसेज भी नहीं भेजते. इतने मार्केट लीडर हैं वो कि उन्हें ऐड भी नहीं देने की जरूरत, मैसेज देने की जरूरत नहीं, और मार्केट शेयर है 2.3%. या हाथ खड़े कर चुके हैं कि अब मैं डूब ही जाऊं पूरी तरह. और बोलने पे लोग क्या बोलते हैं, 4G BSNL को और MTNL को नहीं मिला, तो 4G के पहले लीडर होते कम से कम। फिर ये होना चाहिए था ना, if these kind of excuse are taken that 4G was not given to MTNL or BSNL, then they should have been market leaders before 4G, or at least a big player in the market before 4G. But they started losing their market share as soon as we saw privatization in telecom or private sector entering in telecom. That is what I'm trying to teach you, that never think that public sector is not efficient. The problem is the incentive disincentive mechanism is not properly made to keep them efficient. Understand that always. I will tell you one thing. This is not economics, but applies a lot on economics. Hunger is the key to success. If you are hungry, you will be successful. Now it is dependent on how hungry you are. You know, that is very much inside you, deep inside. Are you willing to work that extra hour? Are you willing to push yourself that extra mile? Are you willing to make sure I won't let anybody else win against me? Even if you know that nobody is watching me, are you still working? All that is hunger. You know, always remember. जैसे आपके किसी आप में से कोई एक मित्र ने आपने शेयर किया है that देखो, don't underestimate the Australians, 88 for 8 का वो कैप, तो यही हंगर है। 2 मैच जीते, हंगर थोड़ा कम हुआ, रूथलेसनेस कम हो गई। Hunger means you are, that is why greats are greats or champions are champions, like say Roger Federer और सचिन तेंदुलकर। हर 2 साल में मैं सुनता हूं ये तेंदुलकर का रिकॉर्ड तोड़ देंगे, 1 साल बाद ये जो होते हैं वो खेलना छोड़ के बाकी चीजें कर रहे होते हैं, क्योंकि वो 25 साल खेलने के लिए वो बनना पड़ेगा लेजेंड, कि मैं खेल रहा हूं, यहां पे दर्द है, वहां पे दर्द है, सब कुछ करके भी लेकिन लगा हुआ हूं, मैं टिका हुआ हूं, बिकॉज आई वांट टू बी अ ग्रेट। कंसंट्रेशन, फोकस, तुम सोच के देखो कभी 2-3 घंटे की क्लास हम लोग कर लें तो कंसंट्रेशन वेवर करना नॉर्मल है। 6 घंटे कोई बैटिंग कर रहा हो 150 किलोमीटर पर आवर पे और आउट ही नहीं हो रहे हैं, और हो सकता है टेम्परेचर 35 डिग्री और 40 डिग्री हो, और ग्लव्स पहन रखा है, पैड पहन रखा है, हेलमेट डाल रखा है, वो देखते हो ऐसे हेलमेट करते हैं पसीना नीचे आता है। मैं कुछ एकेडमिशियंस को देखता हूँ 13 घंटे 14 घंटे पढ़ा भी रहे हैं और पढ़ भी रहे हैं। कंसंट्रेशन वेवर करना तो बड़ा नॉर्मल है, पढ़ते हुए लगेगा क्या पढ़ रहा हूँ, क्या पढ़ा ये, भाड़ में जाए, आज इच्छा नहीं हो रही। सो रिमेंबर, कंसंट्रेटिंग इज टफ बट दैट्स हंगर। मैं रुक के आपको इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ, public sector doesn't have that hunger in India. That was my reason of stopping and telling you a lecture about hunger. They don't have the hunger to succeed. They don't want to be number one. That we should be the number one, how can somebody beat me? It's not that nobody will beat you, but it should pinch, at least. एक यहाँ तकलीफ तो होनी चाहिए, अरे मुझे हरा रहा है, मैं देखता हूँ वो तकलीफ तक नहीं है, अरे तुम्हारी कंपनी तो डूब रही है, हाँ पता है मुझे, बड़े खुश होकर बोल भी रहे हैं, ये कैसे पता है? So this is my point, that when you talk about this, maybe this method can develop, because some of them that you see are actually performing well. Some of them are oil companies and they got to do better with respect to things because of being oil companies. Some of them are electricity companies, again they do better because they have kind of monopoly in their market and large investments done by the government. Let's not forget that also. But some others, like a Steel Authority of India Limited, or even an NTPC that does pretty well, or a ONGC, or Gas Authority of India Limited, or Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, these guys are competing. And they're competing with some world-class companies, like say British Petroleum, Exxon Oil. So they're competing with some big companies and still proving their mettle. And that's performance. That I can also withstand good competition and I will leave my mark. There are some wonderful people in them, जिनको मैं कह रहा था वो हंगर वाली बात, कि वो सेकंड नहीं आना चाहते, तो वो अपने मिनिस्टर से लड़ते हैं जाकर कि जल्दी परमिशन दिलवाइए सर, क्या कर रहे हैं ये काम। आपको मैं एक नाम बोलता हूं उनमें से, केवी कामत। He is a name that I've seen doing such things, because I was in a committee meet, and forget that, but I'll tell you, just to corroborate my point, I'm telling you this. And there was that committee meet who had the Ministry of Finance people, and I saw Mr. Kamath waiting outside that committee meet for 1.5 hours till the meet got over, And I can't tell you what he did to the finance secretary after that. He was loud, he was very clear, and he was saying that this file should be on my table, sir, because he was junior on rank, by tomorrow, else I will be forced to approach the media. So, there are people like that. And at that time, he used to be SBI chairman. I mean, SBI chairman. तो उनको कुछ काम होगा, लेकिन मैंने देखा कि वो जूनियर थे वैसे रैंक में, लेकिन सर ही थोड़ा कांप रहे थे. And he was completely fearless. And he was saying, sir, this file should be on my table. I have been waiting since long, and this is not happening. Why is this delayed in your ministry? I don't know. But this should be there. Else, I will have to go to the media. And all this he was saying loud enough. In fact, he was not even bothered about the protocol. Might have been pretty frustrated. And KV Kamath is responsible for setting up ICICI, transferring it from a development bank to a private bank. So that their contribution is tremendous. HD Parekh in HDFC. Their contribution is tremendous. These guys created institutions. And that is what we need, institution builders. अब ये लोग चले भी जाएं तो ये इंस्टीट्यूशन ठीक चलते रहेंगे क्योंकि उन्होंने एक सिस्टम बना दिया उसके अंदर. तो यही समझा रहा हूं, पब्लिक सेक्टर को इसी रिफॉर्म की जरूरत है. The reform public sector needs is institutionalization of performance. That make them performance oriented. You don't do well, you will perish. That is the basic idea. All right. Let's see this then. You take the next up there, you write now, second point. This is second point on reforms. First was autonomy. Now second point on reform. What is the trouble still think? 16 Mini Ratna 2, 57 Mini Ratna 1, 13 Navratna, 12 Maharatna, still less than 100 out of 389 CPSEs and 277 CPSUs. That is the trouble point. That not even 100 firms in this category out of all these, and that shows that we are not performing that well. So the second point that comes in, you write disinvestment or divestment. Yes, yes. Well, right now it doesn't seem like that because things have gone smoothly. So we won't look for any disadvantage per se. But the only thing is, as I told you, that still not even 100 firms are qualifying. You can't merge all the oil and gas sector PSBs, Himanshu. It's not that easy, actually. There are different methods of working. And they're doing different work even if they're in the same sector. They work at sometimes around general manager level. Yes, PSUs are in a low-level equilibrium to some extent. Not all of them, but several of them. Let's see this then. Actually, if you ask me, one of the reasons also why PSUs don't work well at times is lack of, and that applies on many private sector firms also, is lack of understanding of resource cost involved. That how much resource is being put in running me, that understanding is missing. It's thought that money will come on its own, and I just got to keep working. So that is the idea concerned again. नहीं, मिनिस्ट्री वो जो महारत्न है उनमें कोई ऐसी रेस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है. वो हायर कर सकते हैं, पोस्ट क्रिएट भी कर सकते हैं, उनको फ्रीडम है. Anything, even the new posts can be created by them. All right, they have the freedom to do that. All right, yes, yes. Okay, no. So, they keep revising. Like 2010, it used to be 10,000 crore and 15,000 crore. So they have revised it. The last revision took place in 2016. So 17 rather. So they do revise over the period, of course. All right. Now see, when we talk disinvestment or divestment, you write a line. It is sale of government shares in a public sector unit to any other enterprise or household. Sale of government shares in a public sector unit to any other enterprise or household. That is when we say it is disinvestment. I have already told you, I hope you would keep it in mind, that if government sells its shares even to another government company, it's disinvestment. If the government, if say LIC, government shares are sold in LIC, and while selling those shares in LIC, government sells it, if the buyer is even Coal India Limited, that will still be treated as disinvestment. In fact, out of the claims that Economic Survey is making this year, out of 4,07,000 crore rupees worth of disinvestment that they claim the government has done in the last 8 years, 2,74,000 crore has been disinvestment of government companies buying government shares. You know? So that is not healthy and that is not reform. They can claim it as reform by speaking half-truth, but that is not reform. Right? That is what you have to keep in mind. Reform is when you actually restructure the company. What's the purpose of disinvestment? The purpose is restructure. Make sure industry becomes competitive. Make sure firms become transparent. Assuring that there is a proper credited account and the firm is listed with SEBI and there are outsiders in the management. So that is the purpose of disinvestment. The purpose is not to only take money from the public sector and get things going. I am honestly telling you this, and not as an individual, but as an economist. The big reason we have gone slow on disinvestment in India in the last 3 years is because government is conveniently getting its money through taxation and through monetization of asset. You know why I am saying this? Because that shows they are internally not convinced about disinvestment. वो मजबूरी का काम धंधा था कि अच्छा क्या करें, पैसा तो लाना है बजट में, तो ये आसान है, 5% वहाँ बेच दो, 10% यहाँ बेच दो. तभी जब भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बोलते हैं या लोग बोलते हैं that प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज अगेंस्ट ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, it doesn't rub an eyes for me. Prime Minister is one of the most pro-bureaucrats Prime Minister I have seen in Indian economic history. Maybe he is second only to Mrs. Indira Gandhi if he is already not topping her. I'll tell you why I say that. Look at the way Niti Aayog deputy chairmen have changed. Starting with Arvind Panagaria, sir, a person with huge credential, a PhD from Columbia University. Then he stays there 3 years, he goes away, replaced by Rajiv Kumarji, who has a PhD degree, but when did it happen and what was the topic was not very clear. But at least there was a PhD degree and there was some academic background to it. And now finally it all boils down to a bureaucrat person again becoming the deputy chairman of Niti Aayog with a political science degree. तो हम बहुत अच्छे जोन में हैं. RBI गवर्नर हिस्ट्री, नीति आयोग डिप्टी चेयरमैन पॉलिटिकल साइंस. क्या तुम लोग इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ रहे हो? अगर तुम्हें हाई रैंक पे जाना है, तुम्हें कुछ और पढ़ना था, तो आप उधर चले जाना चाहिए आपको. बट देर से बता रहा हूं. But jokes apart, what I'm trying to tell you is, this is centralization of power and dependence on bureaucracy, that I will trust the bureaucrats when it comes to taking decision calls. So this is a wrong thing made famous about him, that he doesn't like bureaucracy and he doesn't trust bureaucrats. If I see what he does rather than what is being spoken, well, everywhere there is a huge dominance by bureaucrats and big enough centralization, because for no matter what you do, there is a call from the PMO. In fact, तारीफ में बोल रहे थे. मैं अरविंद पानागरिया सर का एक इंटरव्यू देख रहा था, मैं आपसे भी शेयर करूंगा. I liked that interview and I would share it with you pretty soon. But I was looking at this interview and what he was saying was that I once said something about India-Germany understanding, and next day I get a call from PMO where the person asked me that where did you get the information from when you talked about India and Germany? I mean Germany becoming a G20 leader and all. And he said that I got it from the Germans. They told me that Indian Prime Minister's office helped them in becoming this. And he said then yes, but what's the reason? And they said no, nothing. This the Prime Minister wanted to know. He didn't want the Germans to think that we are taking the credit. It all sounds fine, but that means if you are working for the government, one statement you can't give without the PMO giving you a call. I mean, I would be feeling stifled. And maybe that's what he did, hence resigned and went back to teach at Columbia. Good people don't speak out much. They simply leave. You know, so try understanding this. कि ये शायद मुझे ऐसा लगता है, और अगेन आप अपने पॉलिटिकल प्रेफरेंस की वजह से नाराजगी आपके मन में आ सकती है अभी, बट मैंने खुद को ट्रेन किया हुआ है कि मुझे पॉलिटिकल प्रेफरेंसेस नहीं समझ में आते हैं, तो हर अगले दिन आपको लगता होगा आज इसके सपोर्ट में है, कभी प्रो गवर्नमेंट बोलता हूँ आज मोदी जी ने लड्डू खिलाया इसको, आज लड्डू में से लगता है लौंग निकल गया. So jokes apart, but what I'm trying to tell you here is system is more important than people. So people should work to strengthen the system. People should not become the system. That's the difference between institutionalization and discretion. Systems are the, जैसे next IAS ज़्यादा important है मुझसे. अगर मैं next IAS से attached हूँ, तो मुझे next IAS के हिसाब से काम करना है ताकि मैं इस system को strengthen कर सकूँ. मुझे खुद ही next IAS नहीं बनना. कि अच्छा रूल तो मैंने बनाया है, लेकिन चलो मेरे लिए तोड़ लो थोड़ा. ये थोड़ी गड़बड़ हो जाएगी बात अगर ऐसा कर लें तो. So this is what I need you to understand, that you know people are important, but people cannot be more important than the system. System is more important, then people can be there, and from within the system they can strengthen it. No doubt about that. So keep that in mind, क्योंकि public sector की performance खराब या सब average होने का एक कारण ये भी हो जाता है जब उन्हें shocks नहीं लगते. जैसे हमने एक Air India बेचा, we sell one Air India, it gives a good message to many others that look, this can be sold out. You know, that is the aspect. That message has to go, that firms will be sold out. In NDA 1, when Vajpayee ji was the Prime Minister, they sold 23 firms, you know, in those 6 years. So political management can, and they were running a coalition government, supported by 24 parties. And they could still manage it. You know, that selling 23 companies, and some of them very, very, you know, big companies like Bharat Aluminium Company, Hindustan Zinc Limited. So these were some big ones which were sold in those days. Selling government's majority stake in Maruti Suzuki. 50-50 venture tha, government or Suzuki ka. And it was during Vajpayee ji's government that they pulled out. They said, okay, we are selling 17% more. So this is what we have to understand. I repeat again, that decision making is important, signaling is important, because it's all asymmetric information. So when you take decisions cohesively, you signal to the market cohesively. अब recall करो, मैं तुम्हें बता चुका हूँ ये बात, तभी मैं बोलता हूँ कि जब हम बोलते हैं 2 बैंक प्राइवेटाइज करेंगे, एक इंश्योरेंस कंपनी प्राइवेटाइज करेंगे, और ऐसा बोलते रहे 2 साल, फिर नहीं किए. अगले बार जब आप बोलेंगे ना, तो वुल्फ कॉल हो जाएगा ये. That is what we got to be careful about. Then it becomes a wolf call. So we have to be careful that it shouldn't become a wolf call. कैसे आप बोलते हैं करेंगे नहीं. So that is not good. That आप इकोनॉमिक्स के स्टूडेंट हो, जीएस क्लास में तो मैं उस डिटेल में नहीं जाता हूँ. यहीं से पॉलिसी क्रेडिबिलिटी सफर करती है. If your announcements are not credible, next time you make an announcement, see what do the macroeconomic books teach us? Announcements should be credible, so that people respond to the announcement and you get the result without actually doing it or doing it entirely. But if your announcements are not credible, people won't react to the announcements next time you announce. And that's not good news for the economy. So that is what we need to be careful about. Also remember, institutions are built over years and institutions get marginalized over years. एक गलत कल्चर पूरे भारत में अभी डेवलप्ड है, जिसे हम फ्री बी कल्चर बोलते हैं, कि ये डिबेट ही नहीं हो रहा कि ये पैसे आएंगे कहां से. यहां भी पैसा दे दो, वहां भी पैसा दे दो, और अगर कोई पूछ लेता है पैसे कहां से आएंगे, तो रिटोरिकल जवाब होता है, अदानी अंबानी से लो. ले लो, उनके पास जितना है सारा ले लोगे तो भी वो खर्चा पूरा नहीं कर पाओगे जो कर रहे हो. Take all their wealth, nationalize Adani Enterprise and Ambani Enterprise. Still, we won't have enough money to meet everybody's need. क्योंकि उनका नेट वर्थ कितना है? $100 billion. यही है ना उनका जो असेट वर्थ है. ले लो दोनों से 100 बिलियन डॉलर. मिला कितना? 200 बिलियन डॉलर. हम लोग कितने हैं? 100 करोड़, 140 करोड़. किसी का कोई खास भला नहीं कर पाएंगे हम उसमें इतने पैसे लेकर. So we got to be careful. 1.4 billion people, that is what we are. $200 billion, $2 each, little less than $200 each, little less than that. एक बार में वन टाइम कर देते हैं रिसब्सिडाइजेशन, सबको $100 दे देते हैं. उससे क्या मिल जाएगा? कौन सा बहुत बदलाव आ जाएगा? तो ये बोलना आसान है, अदानी अंबानी से ले लो, अमीरों को टैक्स कर लो. ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं. वी आर टैक्सिंग आवर रिच प्रीटी हेवीली. दोज हु आर पेइंग, दोज हु आरंट पेइंग आर नॉट बीइंग टैक्स्ड. सो दिस इज फिस्कल कंसोलिडेशन रिलेटेड. जब मैं तुम्हें सिखा रहा था कुछ अभी, व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट पब्लिक सेक्टर रिफॉर्म्स, it's related to fiscal consolidation. So if you are writing an answer on fiscal consolidation, you can always write an answer on public sector and include this public sector reforms part in that. All right. It is also related, public sector reforms, to liquidity management. When we mismanage them badly and government borrows heavily to infuse funds into them, that creates a liquidity crisis or liquidity crunch. So my monetary policy, my fiscal policy, they are also connected to what my government is doing with the public sector. I hope you get that point. And you can expand that in your answer. You can include that when you write a monetary policy answer or a fiscal policy answer. Bring the public sector into it. Yes, yes. जब public sector loss में चले, now government has to take loans to fund them, or they have to take loans to fund themselves. And that means liquidity taken out from the market. Now see, when we talk about types of disinvestment, they get money on the budget, fiscal deficit looks low. That is what they try doing. Yeah? All right, then you write the first one. Yes, in fact, you will always see governments which are ideologically bound will always try keeping every rule very, very correct. Over correctness दिखेगा तुम्हें हर सरकार में. तुम जहाँ कम्युनिस्ट गवर्नमेंट है वहाँ भी देखना. On paper everything is perfect. When you will see them, it will seem like, oh, ये तो बिल्कुल जो बात कहते हैं कर रहे हैं. It's only on the ground that you realize things are not that perfect. All right, when we talk about types of disinvestment, the types of disinvestment begin with 1. Minority sale. Minority sale is when government shareholding of course after disinvestment becomes less than, is still greater than 74%. When government shareholding after disinvestment is greater than 74%. And then there is a strategic minority sale. This is when government shareholding, again of course after disinvestment, is less than equal to 74% but greater than 50%. That is called strategic minority sale. The name is minority because government still carries, the name is minority because the government still carries majority stakeholding. Permanent job is one reason always of poor performance. Humans do not have to be certain, it's against our racial memory. No, he is changed now. Krishnanand वो बदल गए हैं. He has changed now. I am going to tell you the difference, Neha. You'll have to wait on that. Signaling is what we did in micro. Revise that. You will get signaling. All right. Then when we see this, we call it minority sale because majority is still with the government. Now, why do we do these minority sale? Various reasons. One reason is that, and this is minority sale and strategic, ये greater than 74% अगर है सरकार के पास, it's as good as having 100%. Not even a resolution can be passed against the government. So greater than 74% is as good as 100% for the system. That is why minority sale. Strategic minority sale, because of the strategies involved. And what strategies? I'll tell you a few. For example, when you list the company, when you sell shares of a company, what would you do? You will list it on the stock exchange. आप उसे register करेंगे stock exchange पे. When you list the company on stock exchange, it comes under the purview of Securities Exchange Board of India. That will mean you will be submitting your audited reports every year to SEBI. And that will mean you are now in a situation where anybody can see those reports. And that will mean that there will be less incentive to be corrupt. Because now you know you can be caught. अभी जो हम इतना खुश होकर बोल रहे हैं ना, अदानी में इन्वेस्टेड है, इतना पैसा है LIC का, ये हमें पता ही नहीं चलता अगर LIC का डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं हुआ होता. Because there is no record otherwise that we would have been able to find. Disinvestment of LIC meant that wherever LIC is investing, you can easily find that out now because it is a listed company now. In fact, in 2015, our current government had passed a rule. Unfortunately, they have not been able to meet it till now, that in every public sector they will do a disinvestment so that it is listed on the stock exchange. Every public sector, they had said that all central public sector enterprises, the government will do some sale so that they get listed on the stock exchange so that there is transparency. Now, similarly, also sometimes we disinvest to create shareholders from individuals, people. So what does that do? It creates a group of people in the economy who will hold public sector workers and public sector managers responsible for performance. You know, that is why these shareholders are required. आप सोच के देखिए, today you read news about public sector that employees are on strike for 100 days. We can respond indifferently to it. अरे कैसा पब्लिक सेक्टर में हो गया, 100 दिन का स्ट्राइक चल रहा है. अब अपनी फीलिंग सोचो, अगर थोड़ा बदल दूं बात, और तुम्हारे पास उस पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनी के 1 लाख रुपए के शेयर हैं और उनकी वैल्यू रोज गिर रही है उस स्ट्राइक की वजह से. सिर्फ नुकसान ही नहीं होगा, अब स्प्रिंग इन द बैक होगा. हम जंप करना शुरू करेंगे. अरे रोको, कुछ करना चाहिए. ये मैनेजर क्या कर रहे हैं, ये वर्कर क्या कर रहे हैं. तो ये तरीका होता है काउंटर कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी बनाने का. This is what the government also tries doing. In every democracy, people do that. Create a counter constituency. Creating a counter constituency means create a set of people who will talk against those people who have made a constituency of themselves. Vote bank, as we say. It's like, suppose there are 10 people, 20 people who say one thing, and I want that one thing to be opposed. अच्छा चलो एक example ले रहा हूँ. मान लो 20 लोग हैं क्लास में जो 1.5 घंटे के बाद, 1.25 घंटे के बाद बोलते हैं सर थक गए, छुट्टी दे दो, जाना चाहता हूँ. और मान लो उनके प्रेशर में मुझे 2 घंटे में छुट्टी देनी पड़ती है. अब मैं क्या करता हूँ, 20 लोगों को और पकड़ता हूँ, उनको बोलता हूँ जब भी वो लोग बोले छुट्टी दे दो, जाना चाहता हूँ, तुम बोलना नहीं सर नहीं जाना है, छुट्टी मत दो. और कभी कभी तो गुस्सा हो भी जाना और बोलना सर हमने पैसे दिए हैं. इस पर मैं गुस्सा हो जाऊंगा, तुम पैसों की बात करते हो, आज तो मैं तुम्हें 4 घंटे पढ़ाकर भेजूंगा. So this is about creating constituency and counter constituency. It's a fixed match going on. Right from the beginning, I wanted to do what I wanted to do, but I just made sure that it all looks so organized that look, I'm reacting to a criticism. You understand that? So that's what governments also do at times. Selling public sector shares to people creates that counter constituency that look, the common people losing money if you are on strike, etc. Another reason why government sometimes chooses to sell public sector is to create wealth for people. That is, selling shares of public sector, people holding that share in their hand, and if public sector does well, the share values go up, and as the share values go up, wealth becomes higher with the people. And another reason why public sector is sold is because the strategic is because sometimes the government wants to give a signal to the market that we are selling this public sector enterprise. In the long run, we will exit the market. You can take your positions in the market accordingly. So these are all various reasons why strategic minority sale kind of thing can start happening. And yes, निकाल के दिखाओ मुझे, आरटीआई के अंदर ही नहीं है, यही तो बता रहा हूं, उसके अंदर आएंगे ही नहीं ना। तुम ऑडिटेड रिपोर्ट आरटीआई में कैसे मांगोगे? वो कहेंगे चेक कर लो आप, मैंने सीएजी के पास जमा कर दिया, तुम सीएजी में जाके आरटीआई फाइल करोगे, वो कहेंगे हमने ऑडिट कर लिया है और ये कोई पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट की चीज नहीं है, हम आपके साथ शेयर नहीं कर सकते। ऑडिटेड रिपोर्ट इन पब्लिक डोमेन is much more than a simple RTI. Audited report in public domain means that you have complete detail of even the honorary premiums and the contracts given, the money taken and so on. मैं तुम्हें एक example देता हूँ, Fertilizer Corporation of India 1986 to 88 के बीच में, और ये तब नजर आया जब FCI को लिस्ट किया गया, 1986 to 88 के बीच में फर्टिलाइजर कॉर्पोरेशन ऑफ इंडिया ने 15 करोड़ रुपए ऑनररी पेमेंट किए थे, और उनके पास रिकॉर्ड ही नहीं था कि ये ऑनररी पेमेंट किए किसको थे। In their audit, in their account books, it was written honorary payment 15 crore, 1986 to 88, mind you. Now that's huge money. And when it was investigated that who were these people who were given this money, they had no record of who were these people. तो मैं और तुम, मैं तो अब सोच सकता हूं क्योंकि मैंने इस पर बहुत पढ़ाई कर ली है, लेकिन हम नॉर्मल लोग जो कॉमन पीपल इंडिया के हैं, वो ये जो लूट चल रही है देश में, सोच भी नहीं सकते किस लेवल की लूट है ये। आप कभी सोचते हैं, कभी कॉमन पीपल को खबर भी है, आर कॉमन पीपल इवन नोइंग हाउ आर द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स ऑफ IRCTC गिवन, इंडियन रेलवे केटरिंग एंड टूरिज्म कॉर्पोरेशन? अब सोच के देखिए that who gets the contract for supplying towels, supplying bed sheets, cleaning the train, etc. What are the norms and clauses in that contract, and so on and so forth. How much money of public is given. पब्लिक कुछ होता ही नहीं हमारे यहाँ, लोग डिमांड भी नहीं करते क्योंकि हम उतने एजुकेटेड भी नहीं होते। कुछ लोग अगर डिमांड करते भी हैं तो उन्हें शांत करा दिया जाता है। सो वी हैव टू बी केयरफुल, इट हैज टू बी, अगेन जो मैं तुम्हें कह रहा था, सिस्टमिक होना चाहिए। आरटीआई क्यों? सिस्टम बने, आप लिस्ट कीजिए, सेबी के पास जाइए, अपने आप क्या हुआ, सेबी कम्स आउट एज अनदर वॉचडॉग। सी, करप्शन इज अबाउट हाउ डार्क और हाउ लाइट इट इज। You keep it dark, people will be corrupt. You give people opportunity not being caught, people will be corrupt. You lighten it up, you make it stark, and people won't be corrupt so easily. You know, that is the whole aspect to keep in mind. कि जितना आप रखेंगे चीजों को, छिपा के रखेंगे या ट्रांसपेरेंट नहीं रखेंगे, करप्शन उतना ज्यादा हो जाता है, इंसेंटिव्स ज्यादा हैं फिर। So we got to have clarity on these whole norms. That is the idea. तुम ऐसे ही सोच के देखो, तुम इकोनॉमिक्स के स्टूडेंट हो और काफी लोग इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़े भी ग्रेजुएशन में, और स्टेट पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस के बारे में तरीके से तुम्हें उनका टोटल नंबर पता नहीं था आज तक, और तुम इकोनॉमिक्स के हो। सोचो जो इकोनॉमिक्स के नहीं है उन्हें तो खबर ही नहीं क्या हो रहा है, कुछ हो रहा होगा, बस उनके सामने बोल दो पब्लिक सेक्टर बिक रहा है, बड़ी गलत बात हो रही है, ये सरकार जो है देश बेच रही है। अच्छा, कौन सा पब्लिक सेक्टर आपको पता है? एंटरप्राइज या अंडरटेकिंग, कोई भी हो, सब गलत बात है। स्टेट या सेंटर, कुछ भी, सब गलत बात है। आप जानते भी हैं ये पब्लिक सेक्टर नाम की कोई चीज ही नहीं थी इस नाम की। मैं ऐसे ही आपसे मजाक कर रहा था, मैंने किया एक आदमी के साथ ऐसा। मैंने उनको बोला भारत इस्पात निगम बेच रही है सरकार, बेच रही है, बड़ा गलत कर रही है। मैंने कहा आप जानते हैं इस कंपनी के बारे में? अच्छी कंपनी है, प्रॉफिट में नहीं चल रही लेकिन अच्छी कंपनी है, ये कहानियां मुझे सुना रहे हैं। एंड आई हैड कुक्ड दिस नेम अप, इस नाम की कोई कंपनी नहीं थी। और जब मैंने बाद में उनको बताया भाई साहब कोई कंपनी नहीं है, ऐसे ही मजे ले रहा था आपके साथ, तो गुस्सा भी हो रहे हैं, आप अब इस उम्र में आके ये सब बात करते हैं। मैंने कहा मैं 30 साल बाद भी ऐसी हरकत करूंगा, आज तो फिर भी मैं खुद को बहुत जवान मानता हूं। आप वेट करिए, मैं 47 में छोड़िए, 87 में ये करके दिखाऊंगा आपको। बट इमेजिन, पता ही नहीं है। मेरे बेटे मुझे बोलते हैं कि मैं कपूर एंड सन्स के ऋषि कपूर वाला दादाजी बनने वाला हूँ, ठीक है, वही बनूंगा भी मैं। तुम तो तैयार रहो, because I don't believe in not living life. But point is, and I believe in exposing people at any level who are lying. कि ये गड़बड़ बात क्यों कह रहे हो भाई, जब कंपनी नहीं है पता तो कर लो, पूछ तो लो कंपनी किस स्टेट में है, कहाँ है, तो मैं पकड़ा जाऊंगा झूठ बोलने पे? वो वैसे ही उछल रहे हैं, बस आइडियोलॉजिकली implanted. You know, the only mistake I did was that he happens to be my wife's brother. So वो थोड़ा टेक्निकली गलत हो गया, but you know, but ठीक है, it's all fine in life. Okay, let's see. Now coming to this, you know, the third thing that we do is minority sale. Is strategic disinvestment. Strategic disinvestment or privatization. Strategic disinvestment or privatization. This is when government shareholding is less than 50% and managerial control is with private sector. Government shareholding is less than 50% and managerial control is with private sector. Government shareholding less than 50% and managerial control is with private sector. I'm sure all of us understand now that all disinvestment is not privatization. So LIC has not been privatized for whatever people can write. It has been done into a minority sale because the government has sold only 3.5% of its shareholding in LIC. So it lies in the category of minority sale. But I repeat again, all of us understand that privatization is a subset of disinvestment. All right, privatization is a subset of disinvestment. Now you give a heading, yes. Yeah, where did they invest? Yes. So the government power is as good as holding 100%, but the government is listing it in the stock market, so the transparency is more. All right, so you make it transparent without compromising government's capacity to influence decision making. In strategic minority sale, God bless you. In strategic minority sale, the government has lesser amount of shares, which means now there will be others on the board of directors. In minority sale, there will be nobody else on the board of directors. Will still be there. All right. हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल गवर्नमेंट का है कंट्रोल, अभी भी गवर्नमेंट का ही है, आईडीबीआई पे भी सरकार का ही कंट्रोल है, लेकिन एलआईसी सरकार के ही अंदर है ना, तो इफेक्टिवली सरकार के ही कंट्रोल में है. All right, you please take this up. You write reasons for disinvestment, or privatization. Either of the two, the reasons will work there. The reasons that I am making you write will also work as benefits of disinvestment or privatization. Reasons or benefits. First one, you write, it helps in releasing real resources. It helps in releasing real resources like land and labor, from non-core areas from non-core areas to be used in core areas, to be used in core areas. Now, I've told you this many times. Core areas are those which cannot function without government, or which need government badly. For example, education, healthcare, law and order, administration, judiciary, water supply. These are things which need government. You can't run them without the government. They are core areas, strategic areas. Even petroleum refinery and all in today's Indian context, core areas because we need government in that. Infrastructure. All right, so these are core areas. You can't completely remove government from here. So you need to have government institutions here to do the activities. Non-core areas, scooter, scooter manufacturing is non-core. You don't need government to make scooters. We don't need government to run hotels. We don't need government to make even aluminium. You understand that? These are non-core areas. Government is not needed in these areas. We can do without the government. So core area and non-core area, the basic idea is do not remove government or let the government continue in core areas, and non-core areas the government should exit. All right, that is the idea. You write second point. All those people posted who are in the government as managers, general managers, CEO, many IAS officers posted in it, many IRS officers posted in it. They will get released. They'll do something else. Take Air India, for example. Close to 20 IAS officers were posted in Air India. They'll do something better in life now, as they get released. No, honestly, I'm telling you, please understand, I must have told you this earlier. As people become officers, they are not trained to be managers. They are trained to be officers. So they should be doing administrative work. They should not be managing companies. They are not trained to manage companies. I repeat again. Training ek mental hoti hai. I am trained to be a teacher. That's at least what I believe. Or I am trained to be a researcher. So I can't be doing other things. It will be difficult now. Or at any point of time. So training की बात है हमेशा. इसीलिए आप release करो workers, get them into the field where they can be useful, and that will be a much better return to the system. Second point, you write, it releases resources. It releases resources in terms of money which can be used for other developmental activity. Other developmental activity. So that is the second thing that it does. Releases resources in terms of money. All right, it releases resources in terms of money. You sell the company, that's one way of getting money. But other than that, you save the money that you are putting into that company every year. Understand that. It's not only the money you get by selling the company, it's also the money you save by selling the company. That now you don't have to put that money every year into the system. For example, putting money in Air India or putting money in any public sector which is not performing well, as in the non-core area. It's waste of resource. All right. Third, you write, it helps in making public sector more transparent, as it is listed on the stock exchange. as it is listed on stock exchange. I hope you understand. This point we already discussed just now. Next you write, it results in creating group of shareholders who can hold public sector managers and workers accountable for performance. Next you write, it can create wealth for retail shareholders. Retail shareholders are individuals, people like you, me, we are retail shareholders. If it is a company or a firm, then we say they are institutional shareholders. All right, this is the name we use, retail shareholders and institutional shareholders. We are talking here about creating wealth for retail shareholders as value of public sector shares increase. As value of public sector shares increase. Next you write, it helps in signaling to the market that government is exiting the industry in future. It helps in signaling to the market that government is exiting the industry in future. All right, that is what it helps in signaling, that government is exiting the industry. Signaling means that you are now giving hints to the industry that we are going away from this market. You write below that challenges or problems of disinvestment or privatization. Challenges or problems of disinvestment or privatization. All right, you write the first one in that, and I'll discuss it with you. First one, it can result in undervaluation. It can result in undervaluation of the firm, due to lack of expertise in finding its true value. We have had this in the past. Up complete kar lo, then I'll explain it to you. You write, this can result in loss to the exchequer. This can result in loss to the exchequer, EXCHEQUER. Now, I'll give you the instance. There have been 2-3 instances in India One is when we sold Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited in 1997, 98 rather, we sold it for around 1600 crore rupees. But after that, when an internal auditing took place, it was found that the land we transferred with Videsh Sanchar Nigam Limited alone was worth 1200 crore rupees. And the spectrum we transferred with VSNL was worth another 2000 crore rupees. And it was sold to Tatas. It became Tata Teleservices. Now that means that company which should have been sold for 5,000 odd crore rupees got sold for 1600 crore rupees. When a question was raised why it is sold for 1600 crore rupees, the answer given was we sold it at the book value. Now that's okay. But then VSNL got land for free and spectrum for free because they were a public sector company. If we are privatizing it, we can't give it for free to the private sector. So that became the trouble factor at times, that we undervalued and then the loss is only to the exchequer and only people happy in it will be Tatas because they got it at much cheaper price. So this kind of mistake we have done in the past, and that is why it is important that we value them correctly. There is another reason sometimes. Sometimes the private sector realizes that we are one among the few players who can buy this company. Say 2-3 players alone who can buy the company. Now all of them, what they do is they start bidding the price low, so that they have to pay less money for that firm. That's another challenge that we have in our system. Now how to overcome that challenge? You write below that, solution. Neelanchal Ispat, it was evaluated by KPMG. So it was sold above the base price. Yes. Like KPMG had valued it, the entire asset, and then a base price was set. The base price was around 200 crore rupees. It was sold for 340 crore rupees. So it was much above the base price. नहीं वो include करके ही KPMG ने valuation की थी. Alright, so the physical assets were included by KPMG. ये बातें हमारे यहाँ generally spread की जाती हैं, कभी-कभी गलत भी, चीजों को थोड़ा गर्म करने के लिए. Alright. Okay, you take this up now. You write, government should appoint an investment banking firm. Government should appoint an investment banking firm. Investment bankers are people who are expert in these things. All right, they are investment bankers, mergers, acquisitions, valuation. It's their job. So they can value the company much better. So government should appoint an investment banking firm to assure proper valuation of the firm, and the value set by investment banker, should be put up as base value for the public sector. All right, that this is the base value, we will not sell below this price. All right, this should be put up as base value for the public sector, that no matter what, we are not selling below this price. In fact, while selling Air India, government did the same thing. They appointed KPMG, they got the base valuation at 12,000 crore, and they did not reveal this base value. They said, you bid according to this, and if your bidding is below base value, you will be automatically rejected. So 7 people bid for Air India, and 5 people bid below the base value. They were automatically rejected. 2 people were above the base value, and then the higher one among the 2 was selected. So that kind of thing brings more transparency, also assures that we will not undersell our product. Second then, you write, it can have a negative impact. It can have a negative impact on workers' productivity. It can have a negative impact on workers' productivity. Workers' productivity. Workers is apostrophe S. Productivity. Due to lack of social security, lack of social security, comma, job insecurity, and lack of human resource training, to shift from work environment of public sector to private sector. Now that is the challenge that we can face. See, there will be two groups of worker. One who will be vulnerable and genuinely vulnerable. People who can be in the last 10, 5, 10, 8 years of work, who have worked in this company for 20 years, 25 years. They are one vulnerable group of workers, because no matter which work they are in, ranging from being the lowest category of workers to the highest category of workers, they will be the larger salary drawers, because they will have seniority. So they will be getting more salaries. Now, if privatization takes place, the private firm might feel incentivized to remove them and replace them by new workers, as they would work for lesser wage. So this is one vulnerability. Another vulnerability is people who can be replaced by machines. They are vulnerable. So people like say drivers or workers, cooks or peons or clerks, they can be replaced by machine. The private sector can again feel who will take the burden of a pension and etc. Why not replace them immediately? Another group of vulnerable workers are those who get the job on the basis of some special category status, like say physical challenge. Their promotion, their treatment, it won't be the same in the public sector compared to what it would be in private sector. And then there will be other group of workers who are not vulnerable at all, but they feel entitled not to work. And they will be very vocal about privatization not happening. और ये बाकी लोगों को डराएंगे, तुम्हारी नौकरी खतरे में है, तुम्हारी नौकरी खतरे में है। असल में इनकी नौकरी खतरे में है, क्योंकि इनको पता है मैंने अब आदत पाल रखी है काम नहीं करने की, टाइम से नहीं आने की, टाइम से पहले चले जाने की। अभी प्राइवेटाइजेशन होगा, मेरी नौकरी चली जाएगी या खतरा है मुझ पर, काम करना पड़ेगा, तो ये चीखें मारेंगे। They will be shouting quite a bit. They will be obstructive. They will be sitting on all those protests and all with all their red flags, pun intended. So when you see that, because remember one thing, efficient worker has nothing much to lose in the system. If I am an efficient worker, I am always secured and keep it from me. Not necessarily in the same firm. I may be insecure in the same firm. I'll go to some other firm and secure myself. If my firm doesn't hire me or doesn't give me good treatment. But that's for efficient workers. The important thing is that, I might have told you the story of Lee Iacocca earlier, and नहीं बताया मैंने आपको? You must know this person. कभी आप फुर्सत में हैं तो सर्च करिएगा. Lee Iacocca. Lee Iacocca was Ford Motors CEO. ये Ford Motors के CEO थे, और इनको अपॉइंट किया था ओल्डर फोर्ड ने, जो ओरिजिनल हेनरी फोर्ड के जो फादर थे उन्होंने. Then Henry Ford III becomes the chairperson, And Iacocca was very influential. He was a mechanical engineer. He had worked in Ford since 1946, and it was now 1977. And Iacocca was the CEO, and the workers would listen to him blindly. So Henry Ford, the new one, second, he felt insecure. उनको लगा मेरी कंपनी में इनकी चलती है, इनका बात चल ज़्यादा माना जाता है, तो उन्होंने झगड़ा करना शुरू किया. And finally, Iacocca resigned. He resigned and left the company. And then, in those days, this was 1978 now, 79, after his resignation, he joined Chrysler. Chrysler was another American car manufacturer. And Chrysler was almost filing for bankruptcy when he joined Chrysler. And he said that I started it. I was reading his autobiography actually some years back. So he said that I filed for bankruptcy. They were filing for bankruptcy. I said, hang on, don't file for bankruptcy. And he set an example. He said, I will be the CEO of the company, and the salary I will take will be $1 per annum. That will be my salary. So I will not be taking any salary to save the company from bankruptcy. Now when he did that, the other workers agreed that they will also take some wage cut to save the company. And then he revives the company, and by 1985, within 5 years, Chrysler replaces Ford as the #2 company in America in automobile behind General Motors. So that is what people with efficiency do. He turns around a dying company. He's taken as one of the legends in automobile sector. ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर के मैनेजमेंट में उनको एक लेजेंड माना जाता है. तो वो ये कैरेक्टर थे, वो एफिशिएंट थे. उनके अपने बॉस के साथ नहीं बात बनी क्योंकि उनके बॉस थोड़े इनसिक्योर्ड थे, तो वो चले गए दूसरी जगह जहां लोग सिक्योर्ड थे. सो इट इज जस्ट दैट. ये आपको भी एक मॉरल ऑफ द स्टोरी भी दे रहा हूं. हमें नहीं पता फ्यूचर में आप क्या करेंगे, पर जो भी करेंगे अगर आप बॉस हैं तो सिक्योर्ड बॉस रहिए. जो आपके नीचे काम कर रहे हैं वो आपसे सीख रहे हैं, आपके दोस्त हैं, आपके साथ हैं, तो उनको साथ लेके चलिए रादर देन उनसे इनसिक्योर होने के कि अरे इसको मुझसे ज्यादा वाहवाही मिल जाएगी. ये तो प्राउड होने की बात है that my colleagues are getting such wonderful response from others, but that is a lesson. So always remember, if Lee Iacocca is a typical example of that if you work well and do good, then job is not an issue for you. That is the point. And remember, he was removed quite unsummarily from Ford. They had thought that they have ended his career. That is how he was removed. उनको लगा था कि हमने career खत्म कर दिया इनको हटाकर. But the fellow resurrected himself. So that is what efficient people will do. Now, of course, everybody cannot be an Iacocca. So what you need to do is provide workers protection, but it should be to the extent where the vulnerable workers should be protected and the non-vulnerable should be given a message that, look, you will have to work to survive. That is efficiency, that is reform. Remember that. The reform should give right messages to everyone in the economic system. So you write the solution. I'm making you write that and I'll explain it to you along with it. You write, in case of privatization of a firm, government can initiate a combination of policies comma, combination of policies, comma, like offering a VRS, voluntary retirement scheme, offering a VRS with large enough funding. That means 8 years, 10 years, that kind of salary should be offered. All right. So large enough funding. In BSNL, the government did it. Even though they were not privatizing it, they were just trying to shed the extra workforce. So in BSNL, they offered VRS with almost 8 years of salary offered, and that resulted in many workers shifting from BSNL. They took the VRS and then took a job in other telecom companies. So many did that. There's one question I see online from one of your friends that how many PSUs have been created in the last few years. You will be surprised to know that in the last 4 years alone, forget the previous time, in the last 4 years alone, we have created 87 new PSCs and PSUs. Last 4 years alone. तो ये मत सोचो कि पीएससी और पीएसयू खत्म हो रहे हैं देश से, नए क्रिएट हो रहे हैं। और सबसे जो फेमस एग्जांपल मैं आपको दे सकता हूं, एयर इंडिया एसेट होल्डिंग लिमिटेड, क्रिएटेड टू होल्ड द एसेट्स ऑफ एयर इंडिया। जब सरकार ने एयर इंडिया बेचा तो जो उनके एसेट और लायबिलिटी थे वो ट्रांसफर करना था, तो एयर इंडिया एसेट होल्डिंग लिमिटेड बनाए। तो 87, आप जो लोग जीएस पढ़े हो मेरे साथ, अभी एक साल पहले तक नंबर ऑफ पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस 356 थे, इस साल 389 है। 33 नए एंटरप्राइज ओपन होने के प्रोसेस में है पब्लिक सेक्टर के। तो अगर बाई चांस मन में ये आता है कि अरे अब पुराने वाला ही चल रहा है और नया तो सरकार नहीं खोल रही, पब्लिक सेक्टर भारत से कहीं जाने वाला नहीं है, कम से कम हमारे लाइफ टाइम में। it's going nowhere. We are ideologically married to it. We don't kill our spouses barring exceptions. So be careful on that. All right. So you take this up, then you write in the same thing, offering a voluntary retirement scheme, then put a full stop and then write. Could you tell me the last line you wrote? Yeah, full stop, then write. It can also include rehabilitation of workers. It can also include rehabilitation of workers, that is shifting of workers from the public sector, which is going to be privatized, and public sector where government stake will be reduced, to other public sector where vacancy is created, and then you write one more. Government can also negotiate, after a full stop, government can also negotiate a clause with private firm that workers cannot be removed up to a point of time. So remember, this third thing that I am suggesting to you was done in case of Balco, Bharat Aluminium Company. It has been done in case of Air India also. In Air India, it has been said that for next 1.5 years, no worker will be removed. In case of Balco, it was said that for 4 years, no worker will be removed. Now, it has an advantage. The workers have a security that they are not losing their jobs immediately, and they have a time to prove themselves. Equally importantly, the private buyer knows I cannot remove the worker. So what do they start doing? They start training the workers in alternative methods, and that increases the efficiency of the workers. and makes them more employable. All right. So that kind of clause can be developed for making sure that workers feel protected when the sector is privatized. I'm asked another question online that is road sector strategic or not? Road sector will always be strategic, and do not confuse monetization of road with privatization. Monetization is for other purposes, and I will be teaching you monetization, but monetization is not privatization. So I will be teaching you monetization, so keep that in mind, but road sector is strategic, without any doubt. There is another thing that we should keep in mind, that's again a suggestion all of us should keep in mind, that reduce the exploitation or exploitative work system in private sector and make public sector work system more responsible. And you will see that people will find it easy to transition from private sector to public sector to private work. Why do we see such a wide hunger in India for public sector work? आप सोच के देखिए इतना ज़्यादा हंगर क्यों है पब्लिक सेक्टर वर्क के लिए? क्योंकि परमानेंट है, सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट है पक्की, कोविड आ जाए तो भी सैलरी नहीं कटेगी, और काम पे जाना ज़रूरी नहीं हर बार. ये चौथी बात लोग बोलते नहीं, मानते नहीं, पर इंटरनली लोग निश्चिंत होते हैं. कहते ठीक है, मैं बीमार हो जाऊंगा तो 8 महीने की छुट्टी ले लूंगा, और प्राइवेट सेक्टर में मुझे वो बात नहीं मिलेगा. पर ये जो चौथी बात है जो मैंने अभी हम डिस्कस कर रहे थे, यही कंट्री को इनएफिशिएंट बनाता है. इफ द वर्कर गोज इन, सिक्योरिटी एट जॉब इज इंपॉर्टेंट, permanency at job not important. You know, make the workers feel secured, and that security should be in private sector also. That security should be if you are working in private sector, then also the worker should be secured. But you make a worker permanent. You know, tomorrow imagine if next IS says, oh, you are permanent, no matter what you do, I can come and start singing. And people will say, sir, economics, अरे एक और सुनो तुम आज. And imagine singing in my voice. Now, 99% people will leave the class and go. 1% is also for statistical error, not necessarily anybody would stay. But 99% people would leave and go. I will still keep singing because I am not bothered. You know, but I got to be bothered about what will happen if I don't do things. So this is what I'm trying to tell you, that it has to be a balance. The balance between making sure that workers don't feel insecure, but then making sure that the workers also feel secured, workers don't feel permanent, that makes them inefficient. You know, that is the aspect. You know, that makes them inefficient. Now when you see this across, unfortunately in India, we live on those extremes. The extremity of life is that in one sector like public sector, the workers feel permanent and there is more than security. And in private sector, the workers are feeling insecure. That anomaly, if we can address, we can do work much better in our system. All right? कुछ लोग बोलते हैं नहीं, सोशल स्टेटस हो जाता है पब्लिक सेक्टर से. हम जो गरीब देश हैं, हमारे यहाँ सोशल स्टेटस 15 साल, 20 साल, 25 साल बाद इस बात से बन जाता है कि आपकी मॉनेटरी स्टेटस कैसी है. Sad, but unfortunately happens. How much useful you can be to the people. That is how all social status, etc. gets created. You don't need to chase that. You know, again, the youth has to be trained in that. How do we train the youth in that? By training the adults. Don't let the youth feel wanted only if they have performed and they have achieved. You know, they can be wanted even if they have not achieved. आप सुनेंगे, मैं आपको भी बोल चुका हूँ बहुत बार. आप फेयरवेल वीडियोस भी मेरे देख लेंगे कभी कभी, जहां मैं बोलता हूं कि अगर प्रीलिम्स नहीं हुआ तो क्या करना है. दिस इज प्रिपेयरिंग द यूथ फॉर इवन पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ अ फेलियर. इवेंचुअलिटी है ना, इम्पॉसिबिलिटी तो है नहीं कि प्रोबेबिलिटी 0 है. इंद्र भगवान तुम्हें वरदान देकर गए हैं कि नहीं, मैंने कर्ण के कवच कुंडल ले लिया, तुम्हें दे दिया है, प्रीलिम्स और मेंस और इंटरव्यू सब तुम्हारा पहले अटेम्प्ट में निकलेगा. नहीं निकल सकता. तो प्रिपेयर तो करेंगे क्या? हम में से आधे लोग प्रिपेयर्ड ही नहीं होते कि अगर प्रीलिम्स नहीं हुआ या मेंस नहीं हुआ तो करेंगे क्या. इसीलिए जब नहीं होता तो 2 महीने नाचते हैं. अपना नाच नूच के 2-2.5 महीने बाद, वो भी 2-2.5 महीने में किसी को अकल आ गई तो किसी टीचर को पकड़ते हैं, सर आई वांट टू मीट यू वंस. I want to plan my future study. कुछ लोग तो 8-9 महीने नाचते हैं, फिर अगले प्रीलिम्स में वही गलती करते हैं, फिर 2 बार प्रीलिम्स नहीं होने पे तीसरी बार यूपीएससी ही छोड़ के कुछ और करने लग जाते हैं. And maybe they are talented enough to qualify, but they are not planned enough to understand that this is an exam where they may not qualify. I mean, Bhavna comes to my mind. She is one of my students. Thankfully now she is an IAS officer. She didn't get her first prelims. और यही किया उन्होंने, अपने काम में लग गए. She was working. तो काम में लग गए, बोले कि 5 महीने बाद फिर प्रीलिम्स के लिए पढ़ेंगे. फिर पढ़े, फिर नहीं हुआ. Then we talked, and I told her that you quit your job. You are a good enough student, and let us see how it goes. And 1 year later, you can rejoin at the same level if the need arises. That third attempt, she made it to 62nd rank. So it's important to understand, how do I plan myself if things don't go my way? तो ये ट्रेनिंग हमें देनी चाहिए अपने यूथ को कि आप क्या करें. जब लोग 1 करोड़ रुपए या 100 करोड़ की फंडिंग मिल जाती है तो हम कहते हैं स्टार्टअप देखो इनका चल गया. जब वो स्टार्टअप चला रहे थे लोग नहीं समझ रहे थे ना उनको. तो यही समझा रहा हूं, जब आप शुरू करेंगे काम, हो सकता है लोग नहीं समझ रहे हैं, वो लोगों की प्रॉब्लम है ना, आपकी थोड़ी होगी. इट्स देयर प्रॉब्लम दैट दे डोंट गेट व्हाट यू आर डूइंग. तो ये सब मेरे गांव में तो अभी भी लोग नहीं समझते कि मैं इकोनॉमिक्स रिसर्च में क्या करता हूं. दे स्टिल डोंट गेट इट. कुछ लोग बोलते हैं भाई आलू प्याज का दाम पता करता होगा. ऐसे बताते हैं मुझे, और मुझे ही बोलते हैं ये सब करते हो गए. हाँ बस ऐसा ही कुछ थोड़ा मोड़ा, बाकी उसमें तो कुछ खास नहीं है. बच्चों को ट्यूशन पढ़ा के काम चला लेता. I say this, मुझे बड़ा मजा आता है when I see them squirming. बिकॉज अगर आप बिहार से हैं तो अच्छे से समझेंगे कि जब मैं ये बोलूंगा तो कैसा है. और वो जब कोई मेरे घर में बैठे होते तो कहते हैं बच्चों को ट्यूशन पढ़ा के ऐसा. अच्छा हम भी बच्चों को ट्यूशन पढ़ाएं. उनको बोलता है भाई आते हैं बच्चे पढ़ के चले जाते हैं ट्यूशन. वो इमेजिन करते हैं अपने मन में ऐसे बच्चे घेर के बैठते होंगे. ये एक एक की कॉपी लेके, हाँ बेटा ये ठीक है. ये हमारी सोसाइटी है ऐसी, वो प्री मॉडर्न है. समझाना ये चाह रहा था रुक कर आपको. सोशल सिस्टम इन इंडिया इज स्टिल इन द इनर्शिया ऑफ प्री मॉडर्न डेज. वी आर स्टिल फ्यूडलिस्टिक विद इन, सो वी डोंट अप्रिशिएट द चेंज. द इंडियन इकोनॉमी हैज गॉन मॉडर्न, so we got to appreciate the change if we want to make sure that workforce is well diversified. I was just giving you that idea. In case they ask you what can be the mechanism to diversify the workforce in India, this will be one part of your answer. The socio-cultural change that we can bring about to induce more people to be entrepreneurs, to induce more people to experiment with their career choices, to train workers to go into different things. Along with that, do labor law reforms, promote ease of doing business, and create better workforce in the system. This whole idea of going to public sector will then take a break gradually. It may not go away immediately, but gradually will take a break. Then we will be in a better, more balanced system. I hope this can stay with you. All right. Then you take, below that, you write the third problem. You write, the proceeds of disinvestment may get utilized. The proceeds of disinvestment may get utilized for populist activities and meeting fiscal deficit requirements, which will be harmful for long-term growth. Now I'll tell you what I imply by that. If we are disinvesting, even privatizing, we are selling a public asset. If we are selling a public asset, it should be replaced by another asset so that income earning capacity, economic development capacity is not compromised. So what do we do then? Today what happens at times, many times the money can be used for purposes which are not necessarily productive in character. All right, the money can be used for those purposes which are not necessarily productive in character. Also, as we were discussing a little while back, sometimes it can be done to meet the fiscal deficit target rather than to restructure the economy. The purpose of disinvestment should be to restructure. Non-core area है, सरकार बाहर आ गए उनसे, वो disinvestment का purpose होना चाहिए. Workers in discipline है और सरकार नहीं कंट्रोल कर पा रहे हैं तो बाहर आ गए वहां से. लगातार लॉसेस में चल रहे हैं, सरकार को बोझ उठाना पड़ रहा है तो बाहर आ गए वहां से. समझाना ये चाह रहा हूं that disinvestment is not for the purpose of meeting only revenue requirement. Disinvestment is for many other purposes. Restructuring of economy as we call it. But imagine if disinvestment is done only for revenue requirement or disinvestment is done only for the purpose of meeting populist expenditures. Then it's like selling your utensils to watch a movie. You know, one day the utensils get over. So we can't afford that. So that is why it should be made mandatory that disinvestment will be done and the money will be sent only for development funding. Now we have a rule regarding that in India, but as I always tell you about the sting of the scorpion, so we made a rule that all money from disinvestment will go to National Investment Fund. But we have written a line after that as decided by the finance minister. Now that last line cancels the whole reform, you know, because now it's the discretion of the finance minister what she would like to do with it. All right, but that is the solution we would suggest. You write as solution, all proceeds from disinvestment, all proceeds from disinvestment should be, all proceeds from disinvestment should be directly transferred to National Investment Fund, National Investment Fund. This is the rule today, but as I told you, this is about with the permission of the finance minister. It should be automatic. It should be directly transferred to National Investment Fund so that it can be used for asset creation purposes. Next you write, fourth, if public sector is loss making, due to any particular reason like sudden international shock, comma, lack of timely appointments, comma, poor capital investment, etc., then it will get very low returns, very low returns, even if it is privatized. I hope you get the point that if it is not doing well, and there can be temporary reasons of not doing well, but the returns will be low. There can be temporary reasons of not doing well, but people won't pay you money saying that, look, it's running in a loss. All right. So you write solution. Even if the firm is in a non-core, non-strategic, even if the firm is in non-core, non-strategic area, still it should be revived. It should be revived and transferred to profit earning, before it is privatized. Before it is privatized. I hope I reach you on that. In case it comes to your mind that if we have made it profit earning, why do we privatize? Because it is non-core, non-strategic area. The government has to exit it. Government doesn't want to input its values over there. All right. You change the paragraph. I'm just making you write the conclusion. Some of you were giving me the look, we won't change. You change the paragraph. No, हम नहीं करते. हम तो इसी paragraph में लिखेंगे. लिखवाओ आप. So I'm just making you write the conclusion. You put it across. But informalization is not about public sector or its sale. Public sector is already a formal structure, and anybody buying it will be formal. है ना? Informalization तो public sector के sale से नहीं आएगा. All right, you write this up. Government established Department of Investment and Public Asset Management. Government established Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, that's DIPAM, in April 2016. In April 2016, to replace Disinvestment Commission. Disinvestment Commission. Full stop. In the same thing you write, the main functions of DIPAM are and this is when you write the main functions, this is the hint for your conclusion that ultimately the decision about public sector, whether to give them autonomy and what kind of autonomy, whether to give them, do disinvestment or privatize or monetize, monetization I'll teach you tomorrow, but whether to monetize or whether to leave them alone and let them revive themselves, all this will depend on a case-by-case analysis individually of their performance. It cannot be a blanket size for everyone, that okay, there's one size fits all blanket and do whatever you are doing and get your returns. It can't be that. It has to be a case-by-case study, and that is why government made DIPAM. All right, that is the whole aspect. And Niti Aayog and DIPAM, they work in tandem, they work together to study public sector and then give their recommendations. All right, that is what they do. All right, so you write in that first point, it is required for coordinated use of public assets for example, if one department needs one asset, for example, if National Highway Authority of India needs roads, and say there is a land available, needs land, and say there is land availability with, say, Port Authority of India, then DIPAM will make sure that they are connected quickly and these formalities are cleared quickly. All right, that is the idea. It should not wait for years. We have seen that happening in India. Port Authority of India had the land, National Highway Authority of India needed land, and it took 3-4 years to get clearance. So that is something we need to change. All right. Second, you write, it advises the government on revival of public sector and third, it studies individual public sector and advises the government regarding autonomy, disinvestment, and privatization. All right, I just want you to give a heading. We'll begin from there tomorrow. National Asset Monetization Pipeline. National Asset Monetization Pipeline. Okay, we'll begin from here tomorrow. Hopefully we should finish this up tomorrow, and we'll begin with industrial manufacturing revival discussion in India, how we do that. Thank you. Sure, Srishti, I can do that. PSU shares even beyond 50% have been sold, Anusha. So even that is called as disinvestment. April se band karna, Gaurav. Nitika, your doubts have been reaching me. I've been answering them also. I hope you have been listening to that. Lydia, I will be talking on monetization of asset tomorrow. You will get clear over there. Yes, now I see this doubt of yours, Nitika, that even 1% of public sector share will be taking them to stock exchange. Absolutely. Huh. Central public. State public के लिए तो भी बहुत hopeless situation. वो क्योंकि देखो जब तक स्टेट गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव नहीं लेंगे वहाँ कुछ नहीं किया जा सकता. ये डेफिनेशंस ये डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट कमीशन ने दिया था 1998 ऑनवर्ड्स ही चल रहे हैं इंडिया. हाँ, decent step, but point is that they should develop it indigenously. That will be even better, isn't it? But ठीक है, चलो कुछ तो करके रहे. मैं आज अखबार पढ़ा नहीं है, मतलब हिंदू नहीं पढ़ा है मैंने अभी तक. हाँ, कल पूछो, मैं आज रात को पढ़ूंगा. No, national asset monetization pipeline is separate. It's not within disinvestment. Thank you, Priyanshu. Thank you, Shubham. ठीक है, एक काम इसमें ऐड कर लेना कि इनफैक्ट ये वाला हटा दो, लॉन्ग टर्म शॉर्ट टर्म हटा दो, और इसकी जगह ऐड कर दो कि बैलेंस ग्रोथ जो है वो विशियस साइकिल ऑफ पॉवर्टी ब्रेक करने की बात करता था, और अनबैलेंस ग्रोथ ऐसी कोई बात नहीं करता था. ठीक है, थैंक यू सेजल. It is not called privatization, Anusha. If it is sold to another public company, it is just strategic sale. MOU is when you send a memorandum of understanding, reaching an understanding with your ministry, and then after that, ministry and the public sector will not interfere in the work. That is the idea of MOU. Yes, today there will be an economic survey class at 9 o'clock. Thanks, Anurag. Thank you, Vikas. Bye-bye. Thank you, Suman. नहीं नहीं, वही है, इमीडिएटली क्या होगा, इंपोर्ट कॉस्टलियर हुआ तो वैल्यू इफेक्ट डोमिनेट कर रहा है. हाँ, तो इसीलिए डेफिसिट होगा. मैं एक सेकंड लूंगा बच्चों. पीपल ऑनलाइन, आई विल सी यू टुमारो 2:50 देन. थैंक यू.